Good evening and welcome to the Canadian Football Fanatics YouTube channel. And this is the weekly show every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. coming at you to talk some football of the Canadian variety. And that being said, I hope everyone enjoyed their August long weekend. I know I did. I'm sure Blake did as well. And hope everybody is ready for your regular scheduled program of talking some Canadian football on a Wednesday night. Without further ado, I'll introduce my co-host, Blake. Thanks for joining me once again, buddy. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, I had a good long weekend. I mean, I spent it working. I've been working, or I'm starting, I guess, technically working a bit of overtime here before I go on that East trip where hopefully I'll be able to meet up with Shane when the Lions play the Redblacks in the first game of that doubleheader. But yeah, working some overtime before I head on that trip. So, it's you got to make that money somehow. So it's been all right. It's been a good
I was
week.
gonna, I was gonna say a little sacrifice for some fun times, I'm sure ahead. So excited to hear about your trip coming up and all the good times that'll be had. But let's get into it, Blake. We've been saying it for a while here, the last few weeks of the season going by, 10 weeks now. I can't believe how fast, and that we're into the month of August already. It's flying by before we know it. And selfishly, I guess, the little bit of a distraction from the NFL starting up has been, obviously from a fan perspective, nice, but just I guess for the CFL diehards like ourselves, a little bit of competition for some of the the flaky guys, the casual fans that are tuning in every once in a while. But just excited to have football in the air, man. Of the CHFL variety as well. Starting to kind of link up with a few different coaches now to kind of get our U Sports coverage going here this upcoming season. So I know you and I are planning to hopefully get to a game or two with our busy schedules. But talk to defensive back coach, just defensive assistant out at the University of Windsor, ex teammate of mine, Isaiah Johns. Going to be releasing that podcast episode here pretty soon as they get going with training camp and all that sort of stuff. And then I'll be sitting down with kind of like we've been hinting at for a while here, sitting down and previewing the Canada West. So my plan is to sit down with a coach from each of the programs and put out a 20-30 minute video of kind of just previewing their team in this upcoming season. So looking forward to that. You guys can expect that, I would say, around the end of August, kind of getting into Labor Day weekend around then, kind of getting you ready for, I think, I believe their seasons will start to kick off here in a few weeks, August 22nd, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken. I believe
la-
I saw, if
I
I'm not
think it's the
mistaken.
last week of August. I want to say the 30th is UBC's first game.
Yeah, so coming up here in a few weeks, so look out for that on the channel and look out for some more of our U Sports coverage coming up here. So busy times on the channel. I realized that kind of how much I've committed to with Raiders and trying to get out to at least one practice a week and doing the player interviews, stuff like that. My coverage on game day for them and stuff. So busy times, but I couldn't ask for anything more. This is something I love to do, and I'm so passionate about football. So excited for more and more to come and be placed on my plate. Exciting times. So Blake, let's get into it, buddy. You know what time it is. It is the 3-minute drill here on the program where we quickly recap last week's action in the CFL. So
Can we
uh,
just skip the first game? We'll just go straight to the second game. They
I was
didn't
gonna
have a
say,
Thursday night game last week.
unfortunately, we have to start with the first game of last week, and that was by the Winnipeg Blue Bombers stunning the BC Lions in a shocking. I'm sure for a lot of those guys in that locker room on that side, probably not shocking to them. They expected to be in that game and fully expected to win that game. But I think looking at a lot of people that picked on CFL.ca, some of the media people, three down, stuff like that. I believe a lot of them picked the Lions to go in and win in Winnipeg. I think it's just the fashion, and so it kind of went down with. I believe the Lions only having a total of 4 first downs,
Yeah.
100 total yards of offense, not a pretty one, and then the ultimate dagger at the end. Vernon Adams going down with a knee injury. It seems that we kind of lucked out, I guess, if you want to call it that. For now, it seems that it's on the more better side of things. The way it looked after the game of him getting carted off there, it didn't look great. That being said, it has been week to week is the I guess the thing that Coach Campbell and the team is going with as of now. So hopefully Vernon's able to return soon. And who knows what's going to happen for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers? For the first time, Blake, I know you've been the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and kind of joking about their struggles to start. But I've been kind of cautious on not wanting to throw dirt on them too early. I finally admit last week, are the Blue Bombers dead? And look what they do. They turn around and shove a 25-0 loss in my face. So to go to Friday's action, we had the Montreal Alouettes once again continue to prove how I feel like dominant they are. Without a doubt, the number one team in the CFL. I think just roster-wise, they're so deep. Davis Alexander gets to start once again and leads the Montreal Alouettes to a 33-16 victory over over the Hamilton Tiger Cats, who were on a 2-game winning streak beforehand. And interested to see how I think these teams play again this upcoming week. So
Yeah, they do.
get to see how that matchup is this week. The third game of the week, we had it finally. The Edmonton Elks did it, folks. They got their first win, and thanks and led by one Tre Ford. And I shouldn't leave out Javon Leake as well. I believe Javon Leake, 12 or 13 carries, 100 and something yards, 150 plus yards, 3 touchdowns. Phenomenal performance for him, kind of his breakout performance as a running back, if you will. I know a lot of people are familiar with his talents as a kick returner, punt returner, but he makes a really big impact for the Elks as a running back with Kevin Brown dealing with some injuries, not being able to be available. So the Elks get their first win, and the Saskatchewan Roughriders lose 3 out of 4 in the month of July, if I'm not mistaken, on a little bit of a slump. But I think once Trevor Harris gets back, he'll be able to set some stability in that organization and kind of get them back on track to where they were. And lastly, we had the Toronto Argonauts give one away late to the Calgary Stampeders, who came back to win. Both teams now 4-4 on the season. The Calgary Stampeders won 27-23 in that one, and that was last week's action around the CFL. Blake, before we bring in Coach, before we bring in Shane, and we get into some news and notes here from last week, what jumps out to you from last week's action?
Yeah, there's a couple things that jump out to me actually. Number one, I'm just gonna gloss over that Lions game. Like, it was so bad on so many levels. We would need so long to talk about that, so I'm just not gonna do that. But um, the thing that really surprises me is how compact the Western Division is now. You look at the Lions and the Riders; they both lost last week, so they're 5-3. The Stampeders are only a game back, as crazy as that seems, at 4-4. Even the Bombers, as they're on a bye this week, I know, but they're at 3-6. The Elks, they're at 1-7 now. Like, there's going to be teams fighting for not only first in the West, home field advantage, but playoff spots right down to the end. And the second thing that I'm really going to be keeping an eye on, maybe next week, is when we start keeping an eye on this. But it's the whole number 12, who shall not be named situation. The Toronto Argonauts, maybe the CFL did this on purpose, but with the 9-game suspension, they're going to have 2 full weeks where they have to answer questions about this. How do you feel? Blah, 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 stuff like that. Kind of rehashing old wounds. As after this week, the game against the Stampeders, which is game number 9 of his suspension, the final game, the Argos are on a bye before they play 2 weeks from Thursday, so from tomorrow, against the Saskatchewan Roughriders. So it'll be really interesting to see kind of what happens with that whole situation.
I was muted, so I said, "Well said there, Blake." But before we introduce Coach here, a few reminders. Power rankings will be coming out tomorrow. That is Power Rankings 3.0, and maybe based on our picks, you maybe will be able to get a hint on maybe where some teams are going to maybe land on that list upcoming. Other than that, a little bit of a switch up here on the show with us, trying to focus on a league-wide more perspective. Blake and I will be releasing a preview video every week for the BC Lions' upcoming games. So expect this week's video to release on Saturday morning with the Lions playing Sunday. Just a quick little, another 20, 30-minute video. Just basically our thoughts. Maybe we'll include our 3 keys to the game, kind of spoilers for game day, and just whatever else that's kind of coming to mind instead of taking up some time here on the show. I figured Blake and I could do that, especially with both of our schedules, being able to take some time out whenever we both are kind of free and not having to rush around, stuff like that. So you can expect that Saturday morning. And then this week, I don't believe I will be able to do a post-game show. If Blake is available, he is more than welcome to I was going to say go solo. But for now, we will just say, stay tuned to the social medias. But for now, I don't believe there will be a post-game show Sunday night after the Elks game. That being said, small shout out to the Three Down Bros. Go check out their channel and their page,
Yeah.
their content. I believe they do a Sunday show every week. So if anyone's Lions fans that want
Yeah,
to consume
they'll
some
be live at 8:30, I believe it is.
8:30, and that should be about an hour or so after the game. So go check out that. You guys can kind of get your post game content coverage that way. So before we get into it, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. You can find us on Instagram at Canadian Football Fanatics, on Twitter at _ CF Fanatics. And other than that, yeah, let's get into it with bringing on our man himself, Coach Phil. Coach, thanks for joining us once again. How you doing?
I'm trying to get over this jet lag, but I'm here, baby. What's going on?
Yes, this man that never sleeps. He's all the way around the CFL country, if you will, going to games and stuff like that. So, Coach, I know that Blake doesn't really want to get into it, but I think you'd have a good, nice perspective on, uh, you know, our Lions getting shut out, and maybe you can add some insight to what you saw from Winnipeg as well. But really, like I said, a pretty surprising outcome after the Bombers shut us out 25-0. But any thoughts from your end after the game?
That was an ass whooping. I can't say nothing but that. It was
You're
a
not
surprise.
wrong.
It was a surprising one. I think that the toughest thing to watch was Vernon getting DDT'd. That was the biggest surprise. Like at what point? At what point do we? This is the second season in a row where quarterbacks are just taking a licking right now. So that and you already know last season Vernon's knee got hurt. This season, same thing happened again. It's just tough to watch that happen to your quarterback, man. And credit to Winnipeg. They stepped up. They're hitting their stride right now. They had their early season struggles, but they're putting it together with the young pieces that they got. Tyrell Ford already got 3 interceptions on the season, man. That him and Rowan Milligan are putting the West on right now, man. It's with the defense, so I'm liking it. But they got to get the run game involved a little more too with William Stanback. That's frustrating that he's not getting the touches that he needs, or they're not creating opportunities when he's on the field to get him 4, 5, 6 yards and churn him out a little bit. But one game at a time, and we'll see what happens with them.
Yeah, well said, Coach. I like the perspective, honestly. Me and Blake will maybe get into a little bit more on the preview and kind of our frustrations and stuff like that. But honestly, for me, it sounds like from everything we're hearing that VA has kind of avoided anything serious, season-ending, type of injury. So from all we hear, VA should be back sometime in August here, which is a good sign. And I think things will kind of pick up as business as usual. That being said, I think concerns for me are kind of long term for like playoff type games. I feel like Winnipeg, Saskatchewan, Calgary, those type of teams that like to play a little bit dirtier, slow the game down in the playoffs. I think BC is not really proven that they can win those type of games. That those are the games that they've been eliminated in the last few years. I feel like to the Winnipegs, and a few of those big games even in regular season. So I have some question marks there, but I still think this is a game that you burn the tape, you move on to the next one. I think, unfortunately, Jake Dolegala is going to get the start here, and maybe you have to go through another road bump here and kind of lose 3 of 4 weeks, but 3 straight with including the bye. I think the Lions will be all right long term, and I think they'll pick up once VA gets back. But definitely a game that you want to burn the tape and forget about this one because not a lot went right other than the defense kind of being left out to dry. I believe they're on the field for over 40 minutes. And for my money, I thought they played pretty well and try to keep the team in there for as long as they could. So, Blake, is there anything else before we get off the Lions here and move on? Like I know we want to.
No, not really on the Lions. Just something that I wanted to mention about the Bombers is I don't really think the Bombers are necessarily back. I get where you guys are coming from, but at the same time, Sergio kicked 6 field goals in that game. Like they still only had 1 touchdown. Zach's still only thrown 4 touchdown passes in now 9 games this year. So less than half a game. Like I don't know. We'll see. We see them again next week at BC Place. And if they do it again, then yeah, maybe the Bombers are back. But if not, like I really don't know what to think of the Bombers. I don't think they played that great. They played better than the Lions. I know that. But I also don't think it was a better game from the Bombers.
I think I agree with that, but at the same time, when we played the Riders and Sean White kicked 7 field goals, I don't think we're kind of, oh, the Lions, played good, but they had 7 field goals from Sean White. He's a player on the team. He still has to do his part, and I think that's a credit to Sergio that he kicked 6 field goals, especially the 60-yarders. That's super impressive. That being said, I agree with you that I don't think the Bombers are back necessarily to say that they're going to be, competing for the number 1 seed in the West. I think they are in contention again for, being in a playoff spot, being in that third, fourth area to be in a playoff spot, later in the season. I think that's very reasonable, especially like you said about the West being a little bit closer now with Saskatchewan and BC not being able to pull away in the last few weeks. Calgary and Winnipeg and even Edmonton to a certain extent has kind of kept their in reasonable distance to at least make up a few games here and there, especially with I believe Edmonton and Calgary and Winnipeg are going to start to see each other a little bit more now down the stretch with those Western Division games and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see how some of those matchups shake up. So, Coach, let's get into it. I've been super curious to hear about your perspective on this game all week. We got into a nice. I thought it was a really fun discussion actually last week about Tre Ford, and he went out there. I think did everything that we expected from him to do, and that was ball the F out. And something that I talked about was the ripple effects from the offense around him, the offensive line, the running backs, the receivers. I know MBT had been having himself a pretty good season up to that point, but some of those I feel like opportunities too. I forget who the 93-yard touchdown pass was. Kevin Jones was it?
Kevin
Yeah.
Jones.
Where MBT I feel like is a little bit more calculated with his risk reward type throws and stuff like that, where Tre Ford is more prone to give his guys an opportunity. We've seen that with Geno Lewis now be a little bit more effective here in the last few weeks with Tre kind of giving him some more opportunities to put the ball up and make some plays. And I think that's just another ability that Tre Ford is going to be able to give them offensively and open up the run game, help his offensive line because the rushes aren't able to fully pin back their ears because they have to whether it's consciously, subconsciously, worry about Tre Ford escaping the pocket, his kind of ability to throw on the run, make plays as well. And they have playmakers. So, Coach, what did you see from Tre? And I know it was against your Riders, and you're actually, I believe, in attendance, if I'm not mistaken. So what did you see from Mr. Tre Ford?
I love his composure. Now they did get one play where they did get pushed back. The noise got to him a little bit at one point, but he kept his composure, played his game, did what he needed to do. We looked tired. I don't know if we was kicking at the exhibition the night before, watching Ludacris perform or whatever, but we were not playing our game. We were off. We weren't as aggressive. That was the only thing that kind of frustrated me was defensively we weren't as aggressive. Now, credit to Edmonton. They capitalized. They took advantage. That defense, so underrated. The talent that they have. That talent and the person I really like on that defense right now, man, it's the difference that they got Oakman out there. They got Moncrief out there, some vets. But shout out to Nick Anderson, man. Nick Anderson, the linebacker, Niles Morgan, them boys, the secondary, Lou, all them guys, man. That defense is so underrated. They're young, but there's some heavy hitters. Now, there was that one play where they did hit Johnson in the crown of his head. I was pissed off about that. I was saying every curse word in the book, but they did their thing. Now, offensively, Javon Leake, 144 rushing yards off of what, 3 carries? Come on now. 12 carries?
12 carries, I believe, yeah.
12 carries.
Total, but I think coaches like 144 of those came on 3 carries.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Monster game, man. And I did not even know he was capable of that. So hat off to him. And Tre just did his thing, man. I'm very happy for him, even though it was against us. He got the job done, went into a hostile environment, and it was packed. It was packed in there. So hats off to them. On to the next one.
Almost 30,000 at Mosaic.
And to be honest, as much as I am excited and stuff like that, I was a little bit skeptical myself, right? I believe we all picked Saskatchewan to win, right? I kind of thought, Tre would have a good game, but I thought he would be, maybe not a difference maker. And obviously, maybe you could argue Javon Leake was maybe the difference maker in this game, but I think Tre Ford is, it's not a debate of whether or not Tre Ford did enough or didn't do enough. So let's bring in Shane. I'm curious to get his thoughts on just the overall game as well as Tre's performance. So let's bring in Shane Ryan from 13th Man Sports. Shane, how you doing, buddy? Thanks for joining us.
Sorry for being late. I just finished recording with another group of guys for some CFL stuff. That should be dropping tomorrow, or Friday, on Friday. So apologize for being late. But I mean, hey, that was a great game. Unfortunately, for Rough Rider fans, they gave the Elks their first win. But I mean, hey, Ottawa gave Winnipeg their first win, so it is what it is. But I mean, hey, it was a good game. I still am not on the Tre Ford bandwagon overall. I know you guys might disagree with that, but I want to see more for him. But he played a great game. I want to see him throw more. I think that's my issue. I think I just want to see him be able to dominate the air. And I'm not saying take it over from running. I don't want him to turn into one of those guys that stops his running to throw it. But at some point he's going to have to win a game via the air. It's bound to happen. And this is the same thing people have said about, Vernon Adams, Trevor Harris, is can they win a game? I mean, Collaros was the same way. Can they win a game throwing it instead of running it over it? So as much as I liked what I saw from him, I want to see him be able to stay in the pocket, deliver more on target throws, and kind of just be able to win the game in the pocket if needed.
I thought he did a pretty good job. He went 18 for 22, 250 yards. So obviously had the interception, 2 touchdowns. For me, I think why it's just why I defend him so much is that we want results right now because of Patrick Mahomes, some of the guys that kind of have come into football now and have instant success right away. When we're talking about a guy that's 23, 24 years old, who is already showing flashes that, in 3 or 4 years time, let's talk about then what he's actually, developed
but the
into.
Thing is,
you
mentioned Mahomes, he sat for a year.
Totally.
He sat behind Alex Smith, who, I mean, if you want to get into the technicalities, was probably one of the best game managers of his generation. But it wasn't instant success because he sat for a year. It's the same thing with Jordan Love. It wasn't instant success. He didn't come on the scene it's not CJ Stroud who came on the scene and dominated.
Russell Wilson's another one.
What I'm saying though is give this guy look what he's doing already and give this guy some more time. We want him to win games now when he can win games. If he keeps going like this, he can have a 10-year career and he can do that for another 5-10 years. So that's why I think he has so much promise personally.
I mean, I'm not saying he doesn't have promise or we don't want to see results, but when you go into a game and you're more worried about his running ability than his throwing ability, and you have to you're more willing to give up the passing game to contain him. I think that as a quarterback is a problem.
That paid off because Javon Leake ran for 140 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, they took advantage of it, which is great. But I mean, it's also a depleted Saskatchewan defense. The no Thurman, there is you win the games you win, and you control what you can control. But at the same time, there is a little. I'm not going to say asterisk because that's disrespectful to Edmonton for getting the win. But at the same time, it's not the same as going up. If he can go up next week and do it again and continue to do it, I'm all aboard. All I'm saying is that we've seen things like this before where teams come in, players come in, they have 1-2 good games, and then they come down to earth. They struggle, throwing the ball. They rely too heavily on the run. And when that's not going, the offense kind of stalls. So for me, I want to see if Tre Ford can avoid that aspect of what we've seen other quarterbacks go through.
But that should be expected though too. He's a young player, so those growing pains are going to happen. He's going to struggle. That's why I try to defend him so much, because at his first sign of struggling, people are going to go to say, "I told you so. I told you so." Right away,
people one good game, people are would claim to be if he threw for 350 yards, 4 touchdowns, people would treat him like the next the next Damon Allen or the next Doug Flutie. It goes both ways.
He did that against Hamilton when he came in.
Yeah, people claimed him to be the next Doug Flutie. Like I'm saying, it goes
Yeah,
both
no,
ways.
I know. I'm
People are
agreeing
going to
with your
prop
point.
him. Yeah, like I just think people are going to prop him up. People are going to tear him down. We see it in the NFL. We see it across sports, right? For me, I'm just all about consistency. If he can go out and put up 250 to 350 yards every game and win and put up, a touchdown or 2 to 3 touchdowns a game, that's great. I just don't want to see him have like a 300-yard game and then a 150-yard game and then a 200-yard game and then a 175-yard passing game, right? Like there has to be some consistency that you look for in his progression.
Cole, and Cole, before you go, I have a question. Like you kind of, I think maybe you know about Tre Ford, but Coach Shane, like even myself, I'll fully admit it. When he was playing at the University of Waterloo, did any of us know who Tre Ford was? Because I didn't.
I did. I'm in Ontario, so I got to watch him. But again, he also wasn't dominating the OUA with his throwing. He was dominating because he was a dual threat quarterback that was just as well to run over you as he was to throw over you. But he wasn't dominating the OUA or even U Sports as a whole by throwing the ball.
I think the one thing that we need to take in consideration also with Tre Ford and just the team in general is there has to be consistency throughout the entire team.
Yeah.
We can't let's just not focus on Tre. Let's give them credit where credit is due. They won the game, but there does need to be a balance when it comes to Tre. Let's not take away the one thing that he's exceptional at, but let's find a healthy balance where he can where he can stay in the pocket. And when it does come down the stretch, that last 3 minutes where he does have to be exceptional in the pocket, he can use his legs too to cut down some time to get in field position. So there has to be that. We can talk numbers, we can talk all that stuff, but at the end of the day, the entire team has to do it. So that's just how I feel. Tre did his thing. There has to be, I agree with Shane, there has to be consistency where he can't just go for 300 and then all of a sudden it's 175, 100, da-da-da-da-da. Let's not take away his best asset. Let's try to find where it's like you're dominant, you're right hand dominant, but you want to become ambidextrous. You got to start using your left hand more. Tre's got to learn. Tre's got to keep going. There's got to be a maturation process. So let's just roll with that.
And, all right, I'll use a prime example is Vernon Adams. When he came into the CFL, there was a lot of questions about can he play and win with his arm, or is he going to rely too heavily on his running ability? It's taken him a couple of years to kind of get that balance, but now he's looking like an MLP candidate and arguably the best quarterback in the league because he's been able to find that balance. That's what Tre Ford needs to find. Tre Ford needs to find that balance of when to run and when to be able to stick in the pocket and make that and take a hit to make a pass, or just to take that pass and gain an extra like 10, 15 yards instead of running it for 5. But yeah, don't take away his running game. Like, I'm not saying here, like, make him a pocket passer. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that, like, got to find the balance, got to find the consistency. Let's not get too high. Let's not get too low on him too early.
Just so we're aware, he only ran the ball 5 times last game and was 18 to 22. So I think he did a pretty good balance. But, Coach, I'm interested, me and Blake had to kind of wear. What were your thoughts, Coach? Bobby was in the chat kind of poking a little bit of fun about your Riders. They've been struggling here, 3 or 4. Shane just mentioned about the defense kind of being banged up. I believe Jameer Thurman got ruled out of this week's game. What are your thoughts about Riderville? You were there on Saturday.
I ain't gonna lie, I did get kind of frustrated when I saw people when that last touchdown happened from Javon Leak and people were just getting up leaving. I'm the type of person, I'm gonna stay through the entire game. So I'd rather us drop these games now than after Labor Day when we've already lost 13, 14 in a row. So as long as we win a couple down the stretch, 3, 4 games down the stretch, I'm content. As long as we hold on to our playoff position, I'm cool.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that in our picks because I don't know I don't know where I'm going right now. Let's just say that much.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how the picks go this week too. There's a few games I'm curious to see how both I guess all 4 of us pick. But now that we got Shane in here, I'm curious to get his thoughts and I put it in the title of are the Redblacks for real? And I think personally I'm kind of a believer in Ottawa. Obviously Shane being an Ottawa fan. I would expect he's a believer, but I know coach isn't the most high on Drew Brown, if I'm not mistaken. Judging on Blake's reaction, I don't think he is either. But Shane, I'll kind of allow you to maybe go in and defend Ottawa if you believe so, or maybe if you don't believe so.
I mean, I think they're a top team in the East. Like, I think they're they're the second best team in the East. I don't know if I'm not going to sit here and say they're a Grey Cup contender or anything like that. They're not world beaters. And we talk about consistency. It's the same thing for I have for Drew Brown. Like, he's had his really good games when he threw for 390 some yards, 400 some yards. He's had some really kind of shaky games. So Drew Brown still needs to work on the consistency part of his game as a starter. But I mean, are they better than Toronto? Are they better than Hamilton? 100%. Are they better than Calgary? Are they better than Winnipeg? Yes. But are they better than a healthy Saskatchewan and a healthy BC and a healthy Montreal? I don't know. Unfortunately, we won't get to see it that week with the injuries that Saskatchewan has. But I mean, hey, they have to win the games that are in front of them against the players that are in front of them. So, you know what? They're getting healthy. They had 6 guys off of their injured list from 2 weeks ago against Calgary. So that should help. But I mean, at the end of the day, they're better than Toronto. They're better than Hamilton. That's all that you need to be. They're the second best team in the East. It's only a matter of time. They have that back-to-back against BC at the end of August, start of September. Hopefully Vernon Adams is part of that, at least one of those 2 games, to really see where this team measures up, because it would be kind of unfortunate to go in and play against Delegala because he's not that same caliber as VA.
See, I'm not happy. Shane, sorry, I'll let you finish, but I'm not happy about that. But go on.
That's fair. But I would like to see Ottawa play the best of the best when healthy. But I don't know if they're better than Saskatchewan. I don't know if they're better than BC, and I don't think they're better than Montreal right now. But they're definitely better than the teams that are below them. And we saw with Montreal last year, once you get into the playoffs, it's anybody's game.
That's why, Shane. It sounds like you're a little. I think if you're in the top 4 teams of the CFL, which I think is pretty not a outlandish thing to say about the Ottawa Redblacks, you have a puncher's chance of getting to the Grey Cup. I know you don't want to maybe label them as a Grey Cup contender. That would, to me, would be a Grey Cup contender because you're in contention to going to the Grey Cup. I have personally a little bit more confidence.
Cole, it's a 9-team league. If you want to get technical, everybody's a Grey Cup contender. And if you make the playoffs, you're a serious Grey Cup contender.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, again, anything can happen. They play the games for a reason. So yeah, we saw it with Montreal. Anything can happen. But I think if you were to put the teams on paper, the healthy teams on paper, they're in that middle ground. They're good enough that they could win a game or 2 to get them in, get them that win. But they're also not good enough where you're they'd be the underdogs in every game. They'd just be like Montreal, where they would go into any game against BC, Saskatchewan, and Montreal when healthy as the underdog. I don't even think it'd be a close underdog. I think it'd probably be a 4 or 5 point underdog.
7
from any of those 3 teams. So I don't think it's a fair expectation to put on this team that has missed the playoffs and has just beat their win total with 5 wins, their most wins in a season since 2018. I think it's kind of an unfair expectation to label them as Grey Cup contenders after 7 games. They're playoff contenders. They will be competitive. They will be in contention to go to the East Final. But I don't think it's fair to label them as a Grey Cup contender the same way that Montreal, BC, and Saskatchewan are labeled Grey Cup contenders.
I'll be just because I said, are they for real? You were the one that mentioned Grey Cup contenders. I just said that I would consider them in Grey Cup contention.
I mean, I assume
all good, Shane.
When you say for real, I assume you're talking about being Grey Cup contenders. That's the category that I would assume you're putting them in as for real.
I am. I'll pass it to Blake, or I guess Blake kind of looks like he wants to go on this conversation.
Yeah, no, it's just I really still like that entire Eastern Division. I don't know what to make of other than maybe the Alouettes. Like, even with Cody out, they haven't looked super great. Davis Alexander was spectacular against the Riders in the second half, but in the first half, they looked like absolute dog poo poo. And then last week, like, they kept the game too close where Hamilton was still in it for a majority of the game. Like, yeah, the score looks like it was a lot more lopsided than what my eyes tell me. So if Cody were to go down again, and I'm not hoping for that. Like, I never hope for a team's. I don't want Trevor Harris injured. I don't want Zach Claros injured. I don't want Vernon Adams injured. Like, I don't want Cody injured. I want the team's best on best. But if Davis was the full-time starter for the rest of the year, I don't know what the Alouettes are. I don't know what Toronto is right now. They can't figure out who to put behind center until number 12 comes back 2 weeks from now. And once he does come back, does that make Toronto that much better? I kind of think it does. Hamilton, I don't know what to think of them. Like, they were kind of close in a couple of their losses. That first game against Ottawa, they were really close. Probably should have won that game. And then they won two straight. And like I said, they kept the game close for a majority against Montreal before eventually getting kind of blown out. So I just really don't know what to think of that whole Eastern Division as a whole. Like, if you look at Ottawa's 5 wins, they've beaten Edmonton twice. They've beaten what I still don't think is a very good Winnipeg team. They've beaten Calgary, who's proven they can only win at home and is complete dog poo poo on the road. And they've, like, who have they really beat at the top of the league?
I mean, to be fair, they've only played Montreal.
I was gonna say you can only play who you play.
They've only, and
you can only play on the schedule.
They also got dismantled by Montreal, which again I think you can also put on the inexperience of the secondary at the time. But like, I do agree with what Blake is saying. Like, the East Division, there's still a lot of question marks. Like, I think after Labor Day, Ottawa has all but one game against the East. So, and like again, they're going against Saskatchewan, who's missing their best defensive player. They're arguably their number one receiver and their number one quarterback. And like, Shea Patterson has looked good, but the offense doesn't look the same with those guys missing. Like, Ouellette and like a healthy AJ and a healthy Trevor in that offense makes a difference. So even if Ottawa were to win, which I think they will, it's not the same as going against a Saskatchewan, a team that has, a Thurman and a Ouellette and a Harris on their starting roster, right? And we've seen it before where that's the couple of key starters come back into the rotation. It's a completely different team. It's a completely different game.
Coach, you want to add anything on Ottawa?
I'm still high on Ottawa. I still have a belief in them. I think that I agree with what you guys are saying. But the one thing that we need to take in consideration is this is a 2-year window that they got.
Yep.
They went and spent all that money. They went and got Dominic. They went and got Adarius. They went and got a couple pieces. They still got a young team around them, and they went and got Drew. I still have faith in them. Yes, the record is what it is. They're still top two. They're top 2, top 3 in the East. They're gonna be fine. Let's get them to the playoffs first. I think we jumped the gun a little bit trying to say who's a Grey Cup contender. I agree. Everybody's a damn Grey Cup contender. But you got to make the playoffs first. You got to get to the dance. So let's make sure they get to the dance first before we talk about who's a contender out of the East. Make the playoffs, who can get to the East final. And it's going to be who going to go through Montreal. Yeah. I'm concerned as far as when Cody comes back, who's going to attack that? How they going to attack that defense? How are they going to attack Montreal's defense? Is Drew going to are they going to run the ball a little bit, or are they going to let Drew just sling the rock everywhere? That's my biggest concern. Can Drew take care of the ball and not throw interceptions? But that's down the road. That's it.
Yeah, interested to see how things play out. I got a little bit more confidence in Ottawa. I think they're going to – personally, I think quarterback, they give me the most confidence out of the Hamilton and Toronto going up against Montreal. I think they have the best weapons outside of Montreal in the East. Montreal's defense is in a league of its own, but I think Ottawa's defense is very slept on in the league as well. I think it's up there with
Yes.
Toronto, has been playing very well. I know Toronto's not a defense as well. They've been slept on with their linebacking core. Sopik's been playing very well. Jake Seresno's leading the league. I think Ottawa's defense is very kind of underrated and slept on, not very mentioned, up with Saskatchewan, Montreal, and I think Toronto, maybe Ottawa's kind of that top 4 defenses in the CFL right now. But outside of like on offense as well, they're Dominic Rhymes is starting to get a little bit more involved. I really like the receiving core, and Armstead's kind of been a guy that's been a little bit of a nice find for them so far this year. So I got a lot of high hopes for Ottawa personally out of the teams in the East to go toe to toe with Montreal, and it's that's why football is the best sport. You only play one playoff game. There's no 7-game series. There's no shit. Montreal had their bad game. If you go in there on any given Sunday, on any given Saturday, and Ottawa is the better team that day, there is no shit. There should have been Montreal should have won. There's no shoulda, woulda, couldas. They were the better team that day, and I think Ottawa has a puncher's chance on any given day to go into Montreal, just like Montreal proved last year, to go into Toronto and win. So that's why I think that they're for real. It's still a long way to go, and obviously things can change. Injuries happen, quarterbacks go down, schemes start to get blown up, right? So I could be proven wrong. That being said, I'm gonna put a little bit of more hopes into Ottawa stock personally.
Okay.
So I just want to add, like, I think one thing that makes Ottawa a little bit more dangerous, especially defensively, is they haven't had like a truly healthy secondary all year. Like Dandridge, who's entered the year as their number 1 corner, hasn't played a game. We're seeing McGee finally play a game. Tobias Harris and Money Hunter are still hurt. Like Lamont was coming in as like your DB6, and he was starting week 1. Howell's been on and off the injured list. So like if their secondary can get healthy and have the star caliber players that have been on the injured list, they could be up there against Montreal in a defensive standpoint where they're making plays on the ball. They're making things difficult on opposing offenses. So for them to be 5-2, like, yes, the teams they have played haven't been great, but you still have to win those games, right? You have to win the games that are in front of you no matter what. But I think Ottawa's getting to a point where if they can start getting healthy on the secondary, they could go against a healthy Montreal team and have a better chance than they did week 2 when they had 2 DBs who were playing their like 8th career game and their 2nd career game against probably the most potent offense in the league.
Yeah, absolutely. Long season still ahead, right? Guys are going to get healthy. Guys are going to go down. So I'll be interested to say. And just another reason what gives me, confidence in Ottawa. I think they'll be able to be, competition in the East to go to the Grey Cup this year. So anything else, boys, before we get into some picks here?
We got one more game we forgot to talk about.
What game did Argos Stampeders, correct? I guess last game of the week.
No, Alouettes and Ticats.
I'm sorry, drawing a blank here. Personally, I thought, I don't know if you guys remember going back to last week, the picks. I know Hamilton was on a little 2-game win streak, but they are still 2-6. I thought going into this week, I thought clean sweep is. I don't know if you guys remember, but I said is a clean sweep. We're all going Montreal, and Shane and Coach were quick to put the brakes on things. Blake and I ended up going with Montreal, but I just think Montreal's the best. Like, they had the best roster. They're the best team. I know quarterback hasn't been great without Cody being in there, but they're going to have a chance to be in every game because of the roster that they have. They have a great defense. They don't really hurt themselves, even though Caleb has kind of been inconsistent. And Davis, or is it Davis Alexander that I'm thinking of?
Yeah.
Hasn't been great. He hasn't been a game changer by any means, but their defense is unbelievable, and they don't hurt themselves. They're a really good structured team. So that's why I'm just like Hamilton won a few games, but they are what they are. They are what their record is. They are a bottom of the tier league, and when you play against better teams, like in pro football, yeah, it can happen, especially when you're seeing like they're going to see each other 3 times, I believe, in division. I'm sure Hamilton will get a game or 2, but more often than not, like Montreal, I feel like is built for these kind of games, like to win ugly like that. Even though I believe they kind of pulled away at the end. What was the final score? 33-16.
Yeah.
I think Hamilton actually got a late touchdown too, if I'm not mistaken. So Montreal being Montreal, I don't know about if any of you guys want to add in. I know Shane, maybe you want to go.
Yeah, I mean, I think Hamilton, I was probably running a little bit high based off their 2 wins where they kind of showed that they flexed their muscles of like what they could be. And obviously Davis had a good game. He was able to keep them in it, kind of, and their defense is their defense. So like, give credit where credit's due. Their defense stepped up, helped their offense when they needed to. Then they came away with 2 interceptions off of Bo Levi, which is huge. Those extra possessions. But yeah, I mean, Montreal's the team to beat in the league right now. We've seen Saskatchewan falter, we've seen BC kind of falter. Montreal's the team to beat. Yep. Fajardo, I know they haven't released their depth chart, but he might play. He might be starting.
I think it's like more unlikely though, right? Like because like they, I feel like why like
they take him off the 6th game. There's like he's not going to start. Why take him off the 6th game? That's my.
I know what you're saying.
Maybe he.
I guess that's me being like maybe like the fan in me just being like why like you don't need to.
Maybe like Caleb Evans is out for the year with a knee injury.
But I thought they signed Dom Davis.
They did, yeah.
But like, so
I know he's not great. I know he's not great either. But like,
maybe Fajardo dresses and Alexander's QB1 and Fajardo's QB2 and Davis handles the short yardage stuff. But like, I find it weird that you take him off the 6th game for him not to play. Like it doesn't make any sense to me that you take him off the 6th game already if you're not going to play him or have him at least dress. Like, hell, Saskatchewan has Trevor Harris on the 6th game for 1 more week purely for cap reasons. Like, Trevor Harris was eligible to come off the 6th game. They're keeping him on the 6th game just to save the cap space to keep him on for the full 6. So it just doesn't make sense to put him on a 6th game and then take him off if you're not going to play him or at least dress him.
I don't care about all that. That's fine. We talking about Cody and all that bullshit. That's fine. I have broken this film down to a T with a fine-tooth comb. Can I please? I've been biting my tongue. I've let y'all talk. Can I please?
Floor is yours, Coach.
Thank you. Ooh, the one time I picked this damn team to do something, they just lay a shit egg. I can't stand the mediocrity of this team. I get more pissed off from Rider games, but these mother you know what's. Bo is afraid to throw across the damn middle. Bo could have threw 5 interceptions that entire game. Why are you afraid to throw across the middle in an intermediate route? Why does everything with Bo have to be up the seam? Oh, it has to be a speed out. Oh, it has to be a bubble screen. No, Bo, throw the damn ball across the middle. Just all you had to do. You ain't gotta do too much. Why everything gotta be a big play with him? The defense. Yes, I will give them credit. They made Davis Alexander uncomfortable. They gave him happy feet. That was his one weakness that I saw with Davis Alexander was he couldn't handle the pressure. But when it comes to Scamilton, it's do or die with them. We're either going to get an interception or we're going to get a sack. It's do or die with them. They couldn't do nothing else. Casey says, why are you sitting there hitting him in the head? Like, I don't understand how you can be so inconsistent, yet be consistent and then inconsistent and then just drop games over and over and over and over again. I picked you. Motherfuckers couldn't do nothing. Wasted my damn pick. And run the ball with James Butler. Run the ball.
They're consistent at being inconsistent.
I just want to add, like, I have not seen an offense waste such a talent at running back.
Running back.
Thank you.
In years. Like,
he needs to be traded to a legit contender.
He was at a legit contender, and they was playing with him with the money.
I know he was on BC, but like Hamilton needs to trade him back to a legit contender.
Yeah,
that man's getting disrespected.
Like, last year he led the league. He was, I think, 2nd or 3rd in rushing, but they treat him like Le'Veon Bell with Pittsburgh. We're going to run you into the – last year they ran him into the ground because Bo was hurt. Now all of a sudden they got sexy Bo back and they want Bo to lead – if Bo leads the league in passing, that's a success for them. Fuck the record. Fuck the playoffs. Bo looks good. We got a return on our investment. Bo threw for over 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 yards. What does that throwing the ball do for you in the win column? Run the damn ball.
Yeah, like last year, he was second in. He was 30 yards with 1,116, and he was second in attempts or carries with 235, only behind Oliveira. Like I agree. I don't understand what Milanovic is thinking, not running the ball with James Butler. He is arguably the best back in the league. Like I know Oliveira has the stats. And people are like, oh, no, Oliveira is better. They're this runner. Like, if you actually watch these guys run and how their skill set, they're almost identical runners. They have the ability to break through a tackle. They have the ability to take it outside and burn you with speed. Like, I don't understand what Hamilton is doing this year with the inability.
They can both catch?
Yeah, they can both catch. Like, they are guys that if you were to put Butler in Calgary or in Ottawa or, Edmonton. And as much as Kevin Brown has done well, I think Butler's an upgrade on Kevin Brown. But, like, if you were to put him in any other team that isn't Montreal or BC or Winnipeg or Toronto with Kadeem Carey, all other of those teams are going to have a 1,000-yard rusher and probably actually lead the league in rushing.
Yeah,
like I don't understand what Hamilton is doing with Butler because he has 400 yards on 83 carries.
Just because you have a quarterback that can throw over a mountain doesn't mean you stick with that all the time. You don't have to do or die by Bo. That is so fucking frustrating. Like, you have JB back there. What more does he have to prove? What more does JB have to do for you idiots in fucking Scamilton to understand you have a running back? I know you got to get Tim White his catches, but you haven't even done that this season. And they was the main ones arguing about he's the best receiver in all the league. Like, what's going on? What's really happening? I'm not worried about. I'm worried. I've watched every game back. I've watched the Scamilton I'm watching the Montreal Scamilton game right now because I don't get it. This is the first game this season where I'm not getting what are they trying to do. They're undisciplined as a defense. Offensively, they're fucked. And they're you ever seen a cow spin on the top of its head?
No.
That's exactly what I'm looking at. A cow spinning on the top of its head. And what the hell is a Thai cat anyway? I ain't seen a Thai cat walk through Hamilton ever.
So I have a question. Who's everyone's top receiver in the league? I'm just generally curious on who you guys think is the top receiver. Like, excluding looking at this year's numbers, but like, who would you think is the best receiver in the CFL?
Man,
I mean, I would say I would answer probably in two ways or with two people. I would say biasly, I would honestly include Keon Hatcher in that conversation, and then the next name that would come to mind. I know he's been hurt, bounced around, but I still think Kenny Lawler is that dude personally for me. Just with like his catch radius, the amount of plays he can make. I know he's kind of. It seems like he hasn't been like available the last few years, and he's been very hit or miss. But I still think at kind of his peak, he's still like an absolute unbelievable receiver. That being said, I feel like it's so hard to like say who's the best because it's like you got guys like Geno Lewis, like Dalton. I think Dalton Schoen's in that conversation. Dominic Rhymes is obviously in that conversation. Like it's so hard to just say like one guy, especially because they do. I feel like a bunch of different things. Like they're all like Dominic Rhymes is like probably the best. Go get the ball, jump ball receiver in the league. Dalton Schoen's probably the best like possession receiver. So I feel like it's tough for me, but I would name those two guys personally. I don't know how Coach and Blake feel.
Yeah, I actually completely forgot about Dalton Schoen just because of him being injured this year. Like, I would have, if you had asked me last year, I would have said hands down he's the best receiver. A name that will probably surprise all of you, and I know it's a really, really small sample size, but I think he has a lot of upside. He's from your team, Shane. It's actually Khalil Pimpleton. Like he does so much already that I think he has to prove it for a full season. Like I get it. It's been like what three games, I think, 4 games. But he's already done so much. Like he's proven that he can catch the ball. I believe they've given him like reverses and stuff like that once or twice. He's had a punt return touchdown. So I would kind of lean early to Khalil Pimpleton. Um, Overall, man, that's a really tough question.
Coach?
I don't know, like I don't know anyone on the Lions that I would put number one. Probably Schoen. Like when he's fully healthy, I think I would still have to say it's Dalton Schoen.
Well, for me, I'm gonna take bias. It would be too easy for me to sit there and say Sam Emilus and Sean Bain Jr. That's out of the picture. I'm gonna take them two out the picture. I have not seen a person do the shit Kenny Lawler has done when healthy since Jesus Christ himself. I stand by that statement. There's some shit that Kenny Lawler does that, man, he's phenomenal. Geno Lewis, my dog Geno. I think Geno is still the best go ball receiver in the league, bar none. There's just something about Dominic has the size to moss people, but Geno at 6'2", oh man, it's beautiful. But out east right now, it's Tyson Philpott and Khalil Pimpleton.
I didn't mention Tyson. Like, how could I forget Tyson?
Because he's doing things so quietly.
He just works. But there's one guy that I do like this year that's quietly he's growing on me. Pause. Mark and Michelle.
Yeah.
And Reggie Biggerton. Mark and Michelle. And I've watched more Calgary. That receiving core is nice.
I mean,
dude, that's why Jake Mayer needs to do better. Like they have a good receiving core.
Like
I'm not gonna let y'all disrespect my cousin Jake Mayer like that. We ain't finna do that bullshit here, Cole. All right,
that's Bagleton going to the NFL, I think, stunted his ability in the CFL.
Yeah,
because since he's come back, he hasn't been the same receiver than he was pre-NFL stint. To be fair, he hasn't been playing with like a prime Bo Levi, who was tearing defenses up for 350 yards plus a game. But I still think Bagleton is such an underrated receiver now because of it. Like he's kind of lost in the shuffle of all these high-end quality receivers that like people forget how dominant he was for like 3 years before going down to the NFL.
But let's not forget one thing too, though. When it comes to Calgary, you got Mark and Michelle, you got Reggie Bigleton. When they get
Hakan Avani, dude, he's an underrated receiver. I think. I don't know about you guys.
Oh yeah, underrated. Oh,
he makes plays, man. I swear to God, he always just gets touchdowns.
Luther Kuna Matata. Oh yeah.
I'm not convinced. Like he's a good receiver. I think he's just not being used properly in Calgary. I think he's just being like Mark and Michelle. I think he's a lot of like quick routes and like outs, and like he's not being. And again, this is offensive systems that he's not being utilized to like push the ball downfield. Like you don't get to see his like ability to run with the ball. Like it always seemed. And I mean, he has some like Tim White. He's had some struggles holding on to the ball this year. But I think overall, he's just not being utilized in a way that shows his skill effectively. It always seems like he's matched up one-on-one and they're giving him quick outs or like slants, and he's not really given a chance to run after the catch like we see some of the other receivers in the league.
But that's like me asking Blake to get on a boat and go to Alaska and go get crab. That's not his job description. I'm not finna watch Discovery and watch Blake struggle in a different situation than what he does. You feel what I'm saying?
But I feel like
All right,
Michelle has the skill set to do more than what he's doing.
He has the skill set to go get the crowd from Alaska for you, coach. Don't worry about it.
Like
Blake,
I feel like
Blake
he
will go
has
up there. He's gonna come back full handed.
He gonna come back with $30,000 paid.
It's like Shamar Bridges in Hamilton. He has the skill. He's being put in a situation that lets him use his skill to be a bigger receiver than he has in the past.
I guess.
Yeah.
Like
Right,
I don't know.
boys,
I feel like he's not. He has more than what he's shown because of the situation that he's in Calgary.
Yeah.
I kind of can get on that bandwagon, but let's move on, boys. Let's get into our week number 10 picks. Let's go to tomorrow's game, which I'm interested to see how everybody picks. I'm gonna start. I'm gonna go with Ottawa tomorrow night. I don't know who to pass to. I'll go with Blake, I guess. Saskatchewan and Ottawa, and it's in Ottawa tomorrow night.
Yeah, it's in Ottawa, and like I said, I really don't know where to go. I even still am sort of on the fence, but I'm gonna give you guys a stat, and the stat is 0-4. What do you think that stat is pertaining to?
Last week's nope. I was gonna say last week's record, but
No, Coach, you have any guesses? Shane, you have any guesses?
0-4. Red zone.
Nope. Shane?
I have no idea. Honestly, I feel like is a Ottawa coming out of a bye week from the last couple of years.
Our record in Ottawa.
Nope. It's neither one of those. It's teams playing on Thursday night coming off a short week. It's a short week for the Riders. They played on Saturday. They're playing on Thursday night, a short week. And it's Jamie Nye that tweeted it from the Green Zone in Saskatchewan. Teams that are so far doing that this year, they're 0-4. And the Riders, they've had to do that twice already this year, where they've had to come off a short week to play. This is the second time, I should correct myself. They had to do it when they played Montreal. They're doing it again this week, and they're doing it not as short of a week after next week's game. They play on Friday against Montreal, and then the Thursday night against Toronto. But with all the injuries piling up with the Riders, Trevor Harris is not back yet. AJ Ouellette is not playing. Jameer Thurman. There's another name on the defense that I'm drawing a blank on that's not playing as well. I just think that is too much for the Riders to overcome. I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game because I think what happened last week with the Riders' run defense is an anomaly. They hadn't even given up a 100-yard rusher total, not just to one single running back, total to a team going into that game last week. And then they gave up 162 to Leak. I don't trust Armstead tomorrow against that defense because of what I just mentioned. I think he's a great running back. I usually take him in fantasy. I stayed away from that game tomorrow because I don't think it's going to be a very high scoring game. But I think in an ugly game, the Redblacks are going to get the win.
Shane, I'll let you go first, bud. Who you got?
I mean, it's kind of a homecoming for Claire. He's coming back to Ottawa for the first time after we drafted him in the first round a couple of years ago. But I disagree with the Armstead not being able to run through this defense. I think you're seeing kind of like how important Thurman was to that team. I mean, they were last in the league in passing yards given up. They had like 316 passing yards given up. It was a matter of time before a team kind of kept to the ground and were able to take advantage of it. But I do think it's going to be a low-scoring game. Shea Patterson hasn't shown enough to – he has 4 touchdowns across 6 appearances and 5 starts. I don't know how good this offense will move. I mean, Hickson looks really good at running back for Saskatchewan. Ottawa's run defense isn't the greatest, but I don't know. I feel like this is another statement game for Ottawa, just like how it was against Calgary. I think it's going to be a lopsided game based off key injuries to Saskatchewan. And then I think Ottawa puts up like 30 plus points.
Well, this is one of those games where we're already at a deficit because of injuries, but we got to hold our nuts. We got to drop our nuts and be like, fuck that. We going in here ready to run the ball. Give Frankie the ball and let him get loose for 100. And we got to control the field position. We got to control the clock, and we don't have to play to Ottawa's pace. We got to find our own pace offensively and just go with it. Be creative with your blocking schemes and make something happen in the run game. I'm not concerned about the run game as far as we'll do our thing. Michael's going to hold it down. We got to step up in the box. Our LB's got to step up. I'm more concerned about I'm more looking forward to the matchup of those receivers against our secondary. I'm really looking forward to that. Hardy, Rhymes, Addison, Ackland, all them boys. I think we can match up.
Yeah, gonna be an interesting one, Coach. You're gonna go with Riders then, or what, Coach? You didn't give us an answer there, Coach.
I'm gonna hold my nuts too.
Damn right, he's going with the Riders.
Riders.
I will say I think it's kind of funny. Saskatchewan is starting has two linemen on their left tackle or left guard, who are like considered two of the best linemen in their respective draft class because of the injuries. So that's going to be interesting to see how well some of the old linemen handle Carter and Maldine on the edges.
Oh, that's going to be a problem. Them two been eating.
Cole, before we go to the next game, you didn't go over everyone's record from last week.
We'll go over it at the end. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty. So we'll save that for the end. Let's go. We got 3 Ottawas and 1 Saskatchewan. So we'll go to Friday. That is 4-4 Calgary traveling to 4-4 Toronto. I'm going to wait till everybody else answers. I'm going to go to Coach first. Who you got and why?
You know I'm gonna ride with my cousin Jake, man. Me and Jake, we riding. We gonna ride. I don't care. Shut up, Blake. Don't say nothing, Shane. Don't say nothing. Let me cook.
All right.
Jake is gonna do fine. Jake, all I need is 250. I just need 250 to get my Arizona and my chips, and I'm good to go. Markin gonna do his thing. Reggie gonna do his thing. They're gonna be aggressive on defense, and if Cameron's starting, somebody needs to QB spy and just watch him. That's all. I ain't worried about Arbuckle. I ain't worried about Brian Scott. I ain't worried about Drew Scott. No, whoever. We're going to do our thing. I ain't worried. We riding with Calgary.
All right.
Catch me in all red this week.
I'll go to Blake. I'll go to Blake next. Who you got and why?
Cole, where's this game being played? I know the answer, but I want to hear it from you.
In Toronto.
Exactly. That game is in Toronto. Shane, I saw your look. I saw that look. It doesn't matter. Calgary cannot win outside of McMahon Stadium. They can't do it. I don't know what it is. I don't have the answer. But they're 0-4 on the road. They're 4-0 at home. And the other thing, Jake Mayer does not, as much as Coach disagrees with me, Jake Mayer does not have 2 good games in a row.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
We saw good Jake last week, and I would argue that we didn't even see good Jake last week. We saw a good Jake.
Has any quarterback had a good 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10 weeks?
Nathan Rourke?
No.
This year, no. But
no, but we saw good Jake for 1 quarter, and because Toronto absolutely imploded and the wind played a big factor in that game.
Can I just say it's going to be a tie? Because I don't want either team to win.
Yeah,
neither team deserves to win. To be fair, Jake. Okay, so here again, this is what I said about Jake Maier. When he pushes the ball downfield, he can be a good quarterback. We saw it in the fourth quarter last week against Toronto. He pushed the ball downfield.
He had to.
But again, just because he had to, he still was able to make those throws. He was able to get the touchdowns. But like, we don't see that consistently. Like, I think it's like I've said it before. Not saying anything new here. His inability to consistently push the ball downfield hurts this offense.
Poor coach. Coach just like you said, his cousin. We're just fucking digging Jake Maier's grave, and coach is over here fighting his fight, man.
If Jake Maier was able to push the ball downfield, he would be fine. But he doesn't do it consistently, and it hurts the offense.
All right.
I'm going to dump it down for 3 yards. I'm going to dump it down for 5 yards. And I'm going to put the receivers in a position where, like, they have to beat 3 guys to get a first down. Like, they don't push the ball downfield. You see what happens when they do because they have the receivers to do it. They just don't do it. So, I want both teams to lose.
So I'm going with Toronto is what I'm saying.
Screw Toronto winning, but I also don't want, like, Calgary to win. But I also don't trust Cameron Dukes. Like, dude had 177 yards passing last week. He had 95 rushing yards last week and 177 passing yards.
It might be a 0-0 tie, like, honestly.
Like, I don't know. I'm gonna pick Calgary breaking their road record and getting their first win on the road. Purely because I think Jake Maier is a more competent quarterback than Cameron Dukes is at this point. But, like, I don't think either team will win. I think I would like for it to be a tie, but I think Jake Maier will win because he's a more competent quarterback than Cameron Dukes is. Like, I would not be shocked to see Cameron Dukes get pulled again because the offense doesn't get a first down within the first quarter, and you see Nick Arbuckle in there again at the start of the second quarter. Like, that is how much I do not trust Cameron Dukes.
Y'all done made coach mad.
Why? I picked Calgary.
I don't give a damn. You just sat here and disrespected my cousin like that. How you gonna sit there?
Maybe he should perform better. Maybe he should perform better. Maybe he should perform better. All I'm gonna say. The numbers.
Every quarterback should perform better.
More quarterbacks play consistently than he does.
That was just a backhand
for himself.
That was just a backhanded compliment. Shane's like, I picked Calgary, but Jake Maier sucks.
Hey, all I'm saying, the numbers don't lie.
Okay, so we got two. We got two Calgary.
The numbers don't lie. Calgary's 0-4 on the road.
We got two Calgary.
Jake Maier is a more competent quarterback than Cameron Dukes.
But you want a tie.
We got two Calgaries on the bottom.
A tie benefits Ottawa.
Let's go to the next one.
Yeah, okay.
I'm just saying.
We got
two Calgaries in the long run.
And I'm going Toronto with Blake to make it even. Hey, no offense. It's no shade to Jake Maier. Just personally, Coach, honestly, if I give you a little bit of reason without shading Jake Maier, I really respect Toronto's defense. I really like what they're doing there. And, especially in the linebacking core, Jake Strezin, I think will be impactful once again. He's leading the league in sacks. I think Sopik's been a nice kind of find for him. Canadian kid out of Western who's been dropped into, playing well for them, I believe. And has been doing some good things. Obviously, Wynton McManus had Andrew Harris on earlier in the week. He was talking very highly of him. And a guy that, Blake, as you remember back to our preseason predictions, I picked him to win Defensive Player of the Year. So super high on him. And then I think I've been saying it all along, where their strength lies, at the line of scrimmage, offensive line and defensive line. And I think they've been running the ball really well with Keem Carey. I really like Dietrich Mills and Peyton Logan, what Calgary's been doing as well. I trust that offensive line a little bit more in Calgary, not to slight or take away anything from Calgary. I'm personally just going to go with Toronto just for those reasons I mentioned. No slights on Jake Maier, although I am not the biggest believer. I'll leave it at that backhanded compliment as well. Let's go to Saturday though, which is a rematch of last week's action. That is the Hamilton Tiger Cats 2-6 going to Montreal this time. I will ask the question again, boys. Are we going with a sweep for Montreal?
Yes.
I think it's pretty clear that we're all going Montreal. Unless,
Coach,
unless
Coach, do
is
you want
going
to
for
pick Hamilton again?
Coach, please. Let's think this through here.
All right, give me one reason not to go for Hamilton.
Because
it's
they
Hamilton.
suck.
It's Hamilton, man. Like you picked them last week and they let you
suck.
down. Do you really?
What
really wanna be
the
let
fuck
down
is a
again?
tie cat? That's the reason.
You know what? I'm gonna double down. I'm going with Hamilton
He's
one
gonna
more
double
time.
down. I cannot
double
wait.
down.
Next,
I'm gonna double
I
down.
cannot.
week's show.
Hold on.
I
I'm gonna
cannot
double
wait for
down.
next Wednesday.
Okay, no. Let the man talk. Let
The only
him
reason
give
why,
it.
hold on. The only reason why I'm a double down, when I double down, I don't lose. I've been on this earth 30 years. I've lost money, but I ain't lost money when I double down. So I'm a trust that they run the fucking ball with James Butler. That's all I want. Run it with JB. We getting on the back of JB, and we gonna saddle up on this motherfucker, and we gonna go to work.
I
But what
say.
gives
I feel
you the
like he's
faith?
picking Hamilton just to spite us for
Huh?
the Calgary
right?
stuff.
No, I will. I
What
will
gives
give
you
him.
the faith that they're going to run the ball? They haven't done it all year.
Because you gonna learn. A hard head
Okay.
make a soft ass.
Okay. I trust
I
you.
will.
That's inappropriate.
I will give Coach some like maybe reasoning. It is hard to beat teams back to back. That's a hard thing to do in football. It's a hard thing to do in sports. So I think maybe Hamilton's able to hold in there a little bit more. That being said, I know Shane, brother, trust me, I agree. I'm going Montreal. I'm just saying from a close perspective, maybe this week it's a little bit closer than 33-16. And Hamilton's maybe able. We've seen it all year long, right? We with the games coming down to the last 3 minutes. A lot of close games this year. I know we're all joking, me being one of them, but I wouldn't be surprised if Hamilton's able to keep this thing close. Bo Levi Mitchell has been playing well offensively, right? And if Fajardo's not able to start for Montreal, Davis Alexander isn't a world beater. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's a little close game. That being said, I have no confidence in the world to hitch my wagon to Hamilton. I will gladly hitch it to Montreal and expect them to pick up win number 8. That being said, boys, we can go to the last game of the week, which is an absolute
You guys
tough
are answering
one.
it first.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to answer. I want your answers
No,
first.
you two get to answer this one first.
I'll answer it first.
Fine,
I will
Cole, you go first.
So this one for me, boys, honestly, is a big pick between my heart and my head on this one. Now, obviously, the heart is telling me go with BC. Now, my head is screaming to pick the Elks. Now, it's been a tough up and down for me, as you guys know. Picked the Elks last year to finish 3rd in the West. I started the year, they were 5th in my power rankings. I've been high on Edmonton. And every time they fucking push me off the cliff and make me look like an idiot. I said I will not pick Edmonton until they win or prove me wrong. And they did just that. So I will pick the Edmonton Elks. I will gladly say it up front. I know Blake's probably a little bit hesitant, but the Lions are in a little bit of a slump right now. Losing, like I mentioned, if they do lose, it'll be 3 straight, but 3 and 4 weeks with the bye there in between. So not 3 straight weeks, the bye being in there. I think they're going through one of those periods. And, I'm a big guy. I know Blake, I've been trying to be a big guy of, advocating to, fans that I'd say to stay off the roller coaster. It is a, ups and downs, peaks and valleys, as coaches, I'm sure, aware, right? You've heard that a lot in football. Of a long season, you're going to have your ups, you're going to have your downs. It's a lot of peaks, a lot of valleys. I try my best to stay off the roller coaster as a fan because I think we do. It's also the best part about doing stuff like this, right? Because, kind of being on the roller coaster a little bit gives you things to talk about. You can overreact a little bit. But that being said, a lot of stuff you can tend to overreact to. I think a lot of fans, especially in BC, are going to overreact to a loss versus Edmonton. Whereas, I might be a little bit more, I guess, chill about it, if you will, because losing to Edmonton, obviously people will look at the record of Edmonton, all that sort of stuff. But, as I believe you guys have been big advocates of Edmonton all season, right? They've lost a lot of close games. And, I've been one to kind of use that against them. And I said it with Hamilton, right? Of you are what your record is. But that doesn't take away from the fact that Edmonton has been in a lot of close games. So, they are what their record is, but they are, I think, slightly better than a 1-7 team. So I won't probably freak out too much unless, maybe it's another shutout loss or something like that. But that being said, not having Vernon Adams, I don't expect too much from Jake Dolegala. Maybe coach can kind of lend a little bit more hand into, what to expect from him. I know he actually did lead the Riders over BC last year. I believe that was the game that Brent Adams missed in Saskatchewan, if I'm not mistaken. So, personally, I'm going to go with Edmonton. I'm not afraid to say it. I think they're going to ride a little bit of a high right now. I'm a big Tre Ford guy. I think he's going to be able to do some good things. I'm super curious to see how RP and that defense schemes against him and handles him, because last year RP and that defense really got the best of him in BC place. I believe it was later in the season, like week 17 or later in the season last year, where RP and that defense really kept him in the pocket. Wasn't a lot of running around. I believe under 200 yards passing, and curious to see. But I just think Jake Dolegala on the offense won't be able to get it done. I'm curious. Me and Blake will be definitely touching on it a little bit in the previous series, but Glenn Suter kind of mentioned a little bit of McInnes has kind of been in the boundary slot all season, and then Keon Hatcher obviously getting put back in. Keon Hatcher's went back to his place in the boundary slot, and I'm curious. A guy like Julio, I'd love to kind of pick his brain on. You think that's maybe been something that's been like throwing off the offense? I don't want to make an excuse or kind of even sound like it's an excuse, but something that's been a little bit of an adjustment for whether that's just used to seeing somebody there, different speeds, all that sort of stuff. So personally, I'm going to go with Edmonton. I think BC's in a little bit of a tough stretch right now, and I think they'll get out of it in a few weeks here. So I will pass things over to Blake. Who do you got, buddy? Say it with your chest, Blake. Don't be afraid.
Man, I want to cry making this pick. Like literally, I feel like I'm giving up on my team. But I kind of alluded to it earlier in the show. I wasn't, and like I've been, more than kind of Coach and Shane Cole, that I've been kind of a Coach Campbell fan throughout his tenure here. I wasn't happy with him naming Dolegala the starter yesterday. I was like, what are you doing? Like, have an open competition. I'm not convinced that Jake Dolegala is a better quarterback than Chase Bryce. They didn't even give him a chance. Like, what? Why? Why already name him the starter? Wait till 24 hours before the game. Edmonton knows Vernon Adams isn't going to start, no matter who starts. So wait until Saturday morning when you're getting on the plane and be like, yeah, oh, by the way, Jake's our starter. Like, I think they should have had an open competition at practice this week. I don't know what to expect from the Lions. Like, truthfully, without VA, I don't know what to expect. But then again, all the points that you made kind of makes me want to pick Edmonton more, because I was the guy that was high on Edmonton all season. The first 5 weeks, I think I picked Edmonton every single week, and they screwed me over every single week. And then when you guys all picked Edmonton, I was the only one that went against Edmonton. What did they do? They lost the game. So I think with Tre Ford, Edmonton is a better team. And with MBT, they almost beat the Lions in BC plays. So as much as this hurts me to say, and before I say this pick, also screw you, Chris Jones, because he waited until Labor Day last year to start Tre Ford. He hasn't played in BC plays yet. Tre Ford, the game last year was at Commonwealth. This game is at Commonwealth. I haven't got to see Tre Ford in person, although I will get to see him in Montreal in a couple weeks, so I am very excited about that. But I haven't got to see him play at BC Place, so screw you, Chris Jones. But I am going to go with the Edmonton Elks in this game as well, Cole.
Chris Jones catching strays no matter how many weeks it's since he's been fired. But yeah, man, honestly, I agree with you talking about the quarterback standpoint from a gamesmanship kind of standpoint of, you don't have to name a starter until maybe Saturday or whatever. That being said, I think probably not to excuse Coach Campbell's decision. I think something that me and you were going to talk about on the previous series is, coming into the season, I predicted that, a hot take of mine would have been that, the Lions missed out on the playoffs, and my hot take was that Ryan Phillips takes over for the Lions next year as the head coach.
Yes.
I I haven't been a big Coach Campbell fan personally. I just don't like his coaching style. I know Shane was he mentioned it on Twitter about the stat coming off the bye week, and that continued again of teams not being able to be prepared. I feel like, and for me, he doesn't. Like we get a little bit not a little bit, sorry, we get a lot of access into the post game speeches and stuff like that, and he's just really not a guy that inspires people. He's like very which is, I guess, it can be good as a head coach, right? Maybe calculated and you're kind of controlled, you're calm and cool, collected. But at the other side, like you have to be able to motivate these guys and stuff like that. And I feel like he doesn't do a good job with that. So from a gamesmanship standpoint, I understand, I understand Blake's maybe wanting to wait to name a starter. But from Jake Delagala's standpoint, he's kind of been taking all the second team reps all year. I feel like it's probably hard in a game week situation to get Chase any like meaningful snaps in a team situation without like, say they have 10 reps of team versus scout, you don't really want to have to split them 50-50 where, Jake's only getting 5 reps, Chase is only getting 5 reps. You're really not, benefiting one of the starters to get all the reps with the first team, especially because they really don't get any of those reps. So I think he made the right decision from that standpoint of getting his starter all the reps that they can this week, especially because you want them to do as good as possible. But I agree with you. You could have waited and just made it more of a gamesmanship type of thing. So I will go down to Coach. Coach, who you got on Sunday?
Ooh. First of all, let me just say I agree. I want my OG, Ryan Phillips, to become the head coach. No excuses. You know what I'm saying? He'll hire your boy to be working with him. You know what I'm saying? We out here. That's my OG. But no, I have a tough one with this one because it feels good to be black right now. You know what I'm saying? It feels good to be black. Everything in Edmonton is black. RP's the defensive coordinator, you know what I'm saying, in BC. So I'm feeling it's hard for me. Do I go with the glorious Prince, Tre Ford, or do I go with my OG? Fuck it, I'm going with BC. I don't want my ass kicked.
Wow.
So we got one.
The only reason why I picked BC is because
you come in here next week and RP's gonna clip that.
You already know. Like, no, I think that with this one, this is a game where the defense steps up. I think this is where RP he starts to break out some of his good stuff. You know what I'm saying? I think defense, they've played a little soft. They haven't played up to the expectation of what I know RP defense can be. But more importantly, I have to die on the hill that I did when I was on Rod Peterson's show and I said Jake Delagala is one of the future quarterbacks of this league. So I got to die on that hill. If I choose Tre, all right, I'm dissing Jake. And I'm going to go with BC, man. Next.
All right, Shane, your last one up. You better pick Edmonton. No, I'm just kidding.
You know Shane ain't going to do that.
I mean, maybe. You don't know.
I do.
We're about to find out.
So, I mean, I agree with your stuff about Rick Campbell. I took a lot of flack for it for a while within the Redblacks fan base because everyone was like, "Oh, he went to 3 Grey Cups in 5 or 6 years and he won one," but like he only had 2 winning records. He was sub 500 every other year. I'm not convinced he's a good enough coach. So I understand like if BC fans are starting to get frustrated and like feel like they might be wasting some things, I understand. I also think Delagala is a better quarterback than people give him credit for. Like I when he was in Saskatchewan, I liked a lot what I saw.
Thank you.
He had ball security issues. I think that was one of his bigger issues. He struggled in the pocket a little bit, kind of the pocket awareness. But this is only his 3rd year in the CFL. So we talk about development and time and having these guys adjust their playing styles to a Canadian style versus an American style. It takes time, right? So I want him to perform well. I think I would like to see him perform well. But I've said it before. I have issues with that BC defense. They struggle against the run.
That's true.
I think Edmonton this week, Tre Ford is the difference maker because that running, like this isn't, like I said earlier, this isn't the game he's going to need to throw the ball to win. But I think this is the one where he's going to go He's going to play his style. The defense isn't good enough to contain him or contain Leak in the running game. But I think Delegala does better than I think a lot of people will expect. I'm expecting kind of a mid-scoring game. I wouldn't be surprised to see both teams pop, 25 plus points. But I'm taking Edmonton in a close game. But I think Delegala will not be the reason they lose. I think it's just, you talked about it last week about how Tre Ford's going to make a play that McCobb Bethel Thompson might not. That might be the situation. I don't think it's a game where Delegala throws a bad pick or gets stripped in, gets a strip sack inside their own 25. I don't think it's going to be a game where he causes them to lose. I think he puts up a really good performance. I think Stanback does well. I just think that their defense gives Tre Ford and the Edmonton offense the edge in this game.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see how this game plays out. I'm probably honestly going to unfortunately miss this game, fellas. I'm down in Victoria this weekend playing in a touch football tournament. And Sunday is going to be the finals. So most likely going to miss this. Most likely going to miss this one. And I'm actually honestly pretty bummed, as obviously you guys all know, big Tre Ford fan. My team's playing. And like Blake and I kind of alluded
updates all games to piss you off.
alluded to at the start. I don't think we're going to be able to do any post game because I'll be coming home pretty late. So just overall bummed on Sunday, but I'll be excited to kind of catch up on things once I do get home. And I'll be interested. I'll be very interested to kind of be paying attention on my phone and keeping up with the scores and stuff like that and seeing how things turned out. Like I talked about last year, RP in that defense had a great plan for Tre. I think Delegala does get a little bit more flack than he does deserve, but I just don't know if he can maybe score more than Tre in that offense. I think that I agree with you. I think it could be something like higher 20s, 25, something like that. But I think maybe, the Elks win by a field goal or something like that, just because I think the Elks offense will be able to move the chains a little bit more and get in field position.
Yeah, but I will say, Cole, if it comes down to a field goal, I have no faith in Boris Beatty at all.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true. It's been a good year to be a Lions fan if you're a kicker, if you're nervous about kicking field goals, because Mr. Automatic leaves no doubt, that's for sure. But
I have a question for you guys just before we wrap up. I know. Do you think that if BC loses 2 or 3 more games, do you think Rick Campbell gets fired before Touchdown Pacific?
No. And the only reason I'll tell you why, Shane, is because if you look at the schedule, even if they lose 2 or 3 more games, that they could still realistically be either first or second in the West. At 5-5, it's possible they could, because the Riders have a game against the Redblacks this week. They play Montreal next week. It's very realistic that all Calgary, Saskatchewan, and maybe BC could all be 5-5 and tied for first in the West.
I honestly think he could even they could lose until Touchdown Pacific and he'd be pretty safe. I think that's when maybe questions would start to seep in. I don't agree with it, Shane, but I just think that's kind of the facts. I feel like Amar Doman's kind of they've won a lot of games the last few years. He's selling seats, right? Like from an owner's perspective, he's liking what he's seen. Obviously, the Home Grey Cup this year, you want to fulfill those kind of wishes, but not to kind of poke at coach here, but Saskatchewan really hasn't put the pressure on them, kind of stumbling with them as well, right? If Saskatchewan was to maybe get a few games up on them where that, they were looking up on Saskatchewan opposed to being level with them, I feel like that even if they did lose a few games, they slide to, the 3rd seed. Obviously it's getting noisy for sure. Like the fan base is not going to be happy and stuff like that, but inside the building, I really feel like the questions won't start ramping up until you maybe get 5 and 6 territory. You lose more games after kind of that Labor Day experience or situation. And then you got to think about as well, kind of the scapegoat that Rick Campbell will definitely be able to get away with that. I don't have my starting quarterback right now or forever, however may it be, if it's a couple weeks, I'm sure that'll kind of be taken into account. Not that I'm not saying it's right or anything like that. I'm just saying from a think about a GM owner standpoint, Neil McAvoy and Rick Campbell came in or pretty close. They kind of are the co-GM. They share the duties. So I would think they're going to go to bat for each other, like being that they work with each other. I think it should be like I agree with you that I like that the questions are there, but I just don't think because of the resume that they have. I know it hasn't really resulted in many like winning Grey Cups, but they've won since 2022. They've been in the playoffs. They've sold out, a lot of these home openers, open up the upper decks and stuff like that. So from an owner standpoint, he's got to like what he's seen. The dollar signs are coming in. The market's kind of been rejuvenated. I think it just really needs to, like, these questions need to start being asked of, like, is Coach Campbell the coach to get you over the top? That's why I think that the questions need to be kind of brought up, because he's a good coach, but like I just don't know if he's the guy to get you over the top, the guy that can like push these guys to win a Grey Cup.
Hell no,
I'm
the
just
guy is
curious
Ryan
on,
Phillips.
I agree.
Like, I'm just curious in terms of, like, because they're hosting the Grey Cup this year and whatnot, like, what would be their kind of tipping point of, like, okay, we need to make a change because we want to make it. We have the talent. Injuries play a factor in every sport, right? So I'm just curious on what you guys think the tipping point would be for him.
I think to kind of use your point against me, like how you did, like if they were to lose 3 or 4 games, like they're not really out of it, like Blake said, right? Like we'd maybe drop
Touchdown Pacific
to second or third, but like I think coach, like if I was to maybe put myself in his shoes, I think he would try to use that. I don't know if like they have those kind of. I'm thinking of it like as a debate, but I would think in the back of his mind he would think I'm safe because like we fell to third. We're like you said about like 9 teams being in the CFL, so everyone's technically a Grey Cup contender. I would think that they still think, whether we're second or third, as long as we get in, we have a shot to go to the Grey Cup. So I don't think it's right. I think that there needs to be questions asked. I personally would rather Jordan Maksimic. I think Jordan Maksimic's probably the hotter name because, offense sells tickets. We're in that kind of day and age now where I think maybe he's more likely to lead BC. Ryan Phillips has been a lifelong, Lion. And I think maybe that's where he could get the opportunity to, he's been in-house already, step into that role. He's a young head coach. I think Corey Mace is 37. I believe Ryan Phillips is like 43. So he's a few years older than Corey Mace. So it's been done. Ryan Dinwiddie, I believe, is a little bit younger too, if I'm not mistaken. So like it's not a new thing in the CFL. There's been a few guys that now have been kind of mid 40s. So I think the questions need to be asked. I just think that they won't be asked like realistically until after the season, just because they probably won't want to rock the boat in a season like this. You got to think the guys probably too, like if you're Mar Doman, you're probably going to Vernon Adams, your face of the franchise, and being like, hey, we're struggling right now. What do you think if I was to make a move? And I would think he probably is going to back Coach Campbell, whether he believes that or not. But in a season, you're probably going to be like, no, like I'll back my guy until maybe the offseason type thing. But I'm curious because like I said, I just don't think he's not a motivator. He's not a and like if you're not a motivator, I feel like you better be like great in the X's and O's and like scheming and having your team prepared, which I feel like sometimes he doesn't have our team prepared in the best way possible. So curious to see. And then as well, I think, Andrew talked about it on Monday about like the Bombers are like they have by far the best, he said, like coaching staff kind of culture, I guess he kind of put it, and like that does matter in professional football. Like having a coaching staff that can like get you prepared and stuff like that, as much as it kind of sometimes gets overlooked and stuff like that, it can be a big help, especially in professional football. So I think that'll do it for tonight, boys. About an hour and 40.
Well, it'll do it for the other two. We have one more.
Yeah, I know. The good old 2 hours, I'm sure. But appreciate it as always, boys. We will not skip over it. We will discuss last week's records. So we were once again a little disappointing. But that being said, I was 1-3 last week, moving my record up to 20-16 on the season. Shane was 0-4, if I'm looking at the right sheet, bringing his record to 14-18. Blake was 1-3, bringing his record to 23-13. And Coach was 1-3, bringing his record to 1-7 on the year. Now, like we said, we are going to do 2 polls. Blake, I don't know if you missed that or not. We're going to do our wager with the three of us, me, you, and Shane, and then we're going to do a new wager with the four of us starting from last week. So Coach is 1-7. I believe the rest of us are – Shane might be 1-7 too, but I believe me and you are 2-6 in the four of us. So close one for the four of us. We are not doing the greatest, but that being said, keep tuning in because who knows? It's been a tough season and it's been a lot of tight games down the stretch. So I feel like it's also a good thing too. You never know who's going to win. I think we're probably not the only ones getting some of these picks wrong on a weekly basis. So I will let the boys get out of here. I know Shane's laid out east. Coach, I know he's a busy man, all his kids and stuff like that running around, being the man he is, all his content. I will stop asking you guys for your social media and to plug that. I actually listed that in the description for anybody that's wanting to find out any of their work. Go check that out in the description. That's Coaches Deep in the Game, 13th Man Sports. All their social media is linked down below. But I will ask Coach first, is there any maybe content that the people can look out for to this week?
Gonna be catching up on all the games that I have missed due to traveling and family stuff. So we're gonna catch up on that. I'm gonna be doing a vlog from when I come to BC next week. So we're gonna do have a little fun with that and see my boys and all that. So and season 2 of Deep in the Game is gonna be underway real soon. So I'll have a few BC Lions on there and we're gonna get it done.
Awesome, Coach. Thank you so much for joining us again, and we will see you next Wednesday. Like I mentioned, all the Coach's social media, including his Deep in the Game Instagram, all that stuff is in the link in the description, so you can go hit up Coach from there. So thanks, Coach, and we'll see you on Wednesday night.
Love you, Blake.
All love, Coach. Shane, as always, like I said, join us from the beginning, a co-host now pretty much. All his social medias, as well as the 13th Man Sports social medias, are linked down below in the description. That's Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff, as well as Shane's personal Twitter account as well. So, Shane, is there anything? I know the betting props, all that stuff, but is there anything else that people can look forward to this upcoming week?
Yeah, no disrespect to Coach. I actually wanted to bring this up while we were doing our picks. I was thinking about this at work today. I find it kind of funny. I think it's a good thing, but I think it's funny how we've evolved from the beginning of the season, how this segment was like a betting segment and we'd pick like the spreads and stuff like that. And now we've gone away from that to just a straight pick 'em.
I agree. I like the involvement as well, and I think it's kind of cool as well, and just going with the times as well. But Shane, anything else? I know you're betting props and all that stuff will be coming out, but any other content on the 13th Man platform?
No, not really. I mean, NFL's around the corner. I know you guys have been doing, you specifically, Blake, doing a lot of the Victoria Island Raiders BCFC stuff. OU. The CFC is starting up next weekend, and I think also the Prairie Conference starts up next weekend.
This weekend.
Yeah, I think it starts on Saturday and then Sunday in OUA or CFC.
OFC, yeah.
And we're a month away from U Sports. And obviously some NFL stuff coming up. So a lot of football content. Still looking to try to get some people in for some hockey or basketball content for the NHL season, the CHL season, NBA season. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be some more betting stuff on the NFL, maybe some minor CFL stuff, and then obviously some amateur stuff.
Awesome. Appreciate you as always, Shane, and we'll see you next Wednesday, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Awesome. So like I mentioned, you can find Shane, Coach's social media in the link in the description on the YouTube channel. I believe it's at 13th Man Sports, Shane Ryan _ 13th Man Sports, and then Coach is at Coach Phil Reacts, and I believe it's like Coach 425 on Instagram as well. So you can go find there's social media in the link in the descriptions. That would be awesome.
I am
Blake?
so ready for this segment, Cole. Like I'm gonna clip this and I'm gonna piss people off. I promise you with that. But let's get into it.
Awesome. I love it. We're getting a little bit of pushback, and I know you're probably not as far on the bandwagon as I am with the RC kind of in trouble. I think you're probably just getting to the point of like asking questions kind of thing. And like I said, I don't think he's a bad coach necessarily. I think if I was to relate it to I feel like I do this a lot and I don't want to, but relating it to the Buffalo Bills situation where, the last 4 years we've kind of been on the verge of getting over the hump. this season. Obviously, we struggled a little bit in the regular season. I believe at a point in time we were about 6-6 or 6-5 and something like that. And the questions were kind of raised of, Sean McDermott is a good coach, but is he a great coach? Is he the right coach to get the Buffalo Bills over the hump, right? And I think you got to look at expectations, number one, and you got to look at roster, number two. And I would say that, since 2022, since the end of the Mike Riley kind of era, 2022, Nathan Rourke comes in. Obviously, he gets hurt, but we go to the West Final for the first time in a long time, lose to Winnipeg. Obviously, 2023, we come in. It's the start of the Vernon Adams era. We lose once again into the West Final. If we were to do that again, I'm not on board with the RC getting fired in season. I really think that's just not a thing that's going to happen because I don't think it's realistic. My thing is that I think it is realistic to have the conversation after the season. I think this has have to be something that, as much as people want to, I know, bury Winnipeg, they are not dead. I want to urge people. If you have Brady Oliveira, I'm not saying this year, Blake, because I think the injuries this year.
I get you. Yeah.
I think long term, Dalton Schoen is going to come back, and like we both agree, I think we both agree that Dalton Schoen is a top 3 receiver in the CFL. Right? I think we both agree with that, right? I think it is time for them to make a important decision for them to either move off Zach Collaros or find their guy of the future that comes in next year, is maybe a kind of putting pressure, kind of like a Drew Brown was last year, where he's waiting in the wings for either Zach to slip up, like it was with, like, maybe Bully Mitchell is a little bit better example with the Jake Mayer, where you have a legitimate starter who's kind of established in the league, but you have to have somebody that's coming up to take over with this new core of offensive guys who I think can, compete, keep Winnipeg afloat. Brady Oliveira, for people that, slow start, injuries and stuff like that, once again, leading the CFL in rushing yards, once again, looking like the guy he is, right? And I think he would look even better if he wasn't hurt to start the season. And if he didn't have such a great season last year, right? He's going to go over 1,000 yards this year, and people are going to kind of scoff at it because he had almost 2,000 yards last year. That's how great he was. So I think the Bombers, like I said, with, Andrew Harris was very quick to mention Mike O'Shea and that culture and that locker room and everything that they've established. That is without question that they've established something that's I think sustainable. Now it's going to be tricky for them to do it on the fly, because that's something that they're going to have to do now, is kind of keep Brady Oliveira, keep Dalton Schoen happy with some of these seasons. If they pile back-to-back struggling seasons, like say next year they go 6-12 or whatever, right? Then maybe it's, Brady Oliveira's, why do I want to kind of, stay here and rebuild with this organization type thing, right? But I think it's the hard questions that Winnipeg has to do to keep them relevant. Now, to tie back to BC, I think you have to start having that conversation. That is Rick Campbell the guy that gets us over the hump? Is he enough to get us over the hump? Now, you could say that, look at Saskatchewan, right? Saskatchewan hasn't been able to do it. Now, obviously, they have Corey Mace, but I'm just talking from a team perspective. Corey Mace, new head coach, but, I feel like maybe people are kind of wanting to, overreact a little bit with this, but it is a bigger sample size than just this year, right? We've had, I believe this is his 4th season as head coach, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like this has just been a one and done type situation. And I agree, he's won 2 straight 12-win seasons to the West Final. That doesn't take away anything that he's done. He's a good coach, like I mentioned. I just don't know if he's a great coach. And personally, I think I would love to see the development of RP. Obviously, never been a head coach before. You could say, I guess, realistically unproven, right? Is probably the thing to say, right? And who knows, he could be much worse than Rick Campbell, right? The grass isn't always green on the other side, but I think both of us growing up BC Lions fans, growing up watching a guy like Ryan Phillips, who was the ultimate professional, right? A guy that came in, you could, from all of his teammates, a guy that was a lunch pail kind of guy, came in, punched the clock, did his work, punched out, and kind of prided himself on his business. And you look at his resume, he was a hell of a corner. A lot of interceptions, against Saskatchewan, if I remember correctly. Darian Duran, I'm sure not too fond of some of those, but I think a guy that understands the culture of being a BC Lion and what that means, much more than kind of to just say it. He's lived it, right? Ryan Phillips has lived being a BC Lion, now coaching as a BC Lion, and implementing kind of those core foundational, foundational kind of, I guess what I'm trying to say is the structure of the BC line. So I don't think it's going to happen during the season. I think this is a question for the off season, and when Blake and I are doing off season shows, we can banter about that and get everybody's opinion in the chat Then Blake, let's get lastly to our picks before we get out of here for the night. Hour and 50 minutes. But a quick shout out to my buddy guy who's listening. I see he's on Instagram. I'm not too sure if he's still watching. My buddy guy, Bird Ablett. Going to get into some BCFC picks here, Bert. We're going to go through the week number 4, month already in, Blake. We're talking about the CFL season, and I remember kicking off the season 4 weeks ago, a month now. Let's go with game number 1, Okanagan at West Shore. Who are you going with?
I'm going with the Sun in this one. I know a couple of West Shore people were upset with our buddy Wizard Takes and kind of his power rankings. Spoiler alert, Valley Huskers, you're not going to be very happy with me. But they were kind of like, how are you disrespecting us so much? We're still the defending BCFC champions. We haven't lost a game, blah, 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 blah. I just haven't seen enough from West Shore yet. Like Okanagan, they were down against Langley, a game they should have lost. That pains me because the Rams should be 2-0, but they're not. They're 1-1, and they came back. They won that game in a hard-fought game that I'm with you. I watched a majority of that game, the VI and the Okanagan game. I think the Raiders deserved to win. It was unfortunate that they didn't, but Okanagan got the win. Last week, they went into Chilliwack and they shut out the Valley Huskers. That was kind of pitted as an early season top teams, and Okanagan went in and they made a statement. So I think, it's going to be a really long travel day for the Sun going all the way from Kelowna over to the Victoria there. But I think the Sun are going to pull out the win in that one.
Yeah, man, I like what you said there. Like a little bit of acknowledgement for VI. I love that, obviously. But I too am gonna go with Okanagan. I still think West Shore is gonna be. Personally, I talked a little bit about it with Wizard Takes our little committee, if that's what you want to call it, with HK and Peak and stuff like that. About I haven't watched the most West Shore and Langley games this year, or tape, whatever you want to call it, seeing that the VI Raiders have played PG, Oki, and then Kamloops last week. I've kind of watched them a little bit more. Siouxland Valley a little bit. I believe it was last week when they played Kamloops, or maybe the week before. And West Shore and Langley have kind of been the two teams that I haven't really dabbled into watching much of them yet. I'm going to go with Oki solely because I think I like their defense, number one. I think they have probably the best defense in the BCFC, but I think they probably have arguably the best player / playmaker. Maybe Sadler's up there in terms of best player in the conference, or maybe even Ruben as of now. But I think Noah. I'm drawing a blank on his first name, but the running back at Okanagan has been very good this year. He was a American kid that came up from, I believe, I don't know if it was Florida or Louisiana. Broke a bunch of Reggie Bush's high school records. So a very accomplished high school athlete. For whatever reason, found his way up to the BCFC. I was talking to head coach Sean Rauchi with the VI Raiders, talking about how I felt watching the game versus Oki, that we did a pretty good job of shutting him down or containing him. And then I go to write my article and look at the stats from the next game, and he averaged 6.5 yards per carry on 98 yards and 3 touchdowns. So we really didn't do that well on him. I think that kind of, if that feels like doing well on him, that he had 6.5 yards on per carry on 98 yards and 3 touchdowns, he's really a special player. And I think he's one of those, Andrew Pockernick, we kind of seen Jamel Lyles. There's been some special backs that have been talented in the BCFC. I think he's been, you can kind of compare him to some of those guys that he'll probably get some university looks after this, a guy that's trying to use this platform to, better himself and get to the next level. So I'm going to go with Oki. I think they have the best player in the game. I think this could be a close one as well, and interested to see how West Shore keeps things close and not disrespect them at all. I just think Oki's the better team and have the best player. So I'm going to go with Oki. Before we get to the next matchup, which is the one that we have the most bragging rights on, we're going to go to the last one because it's probably going to go quick. Valley and PG, not much more to be said. I think PG is a good team, but I'm going to go with Valley. I think they're a little bit more hungry and a little bit more to prove, and I think they're just a little bit more talented. So I think no disrespect to PG. I think they're a good team. We saw it against I got to saw it anyways against VI. them playing Langley last week. I'm sure you maybe got to see a little bit of highlights or whatnot. But who do you got, Valley or PG?
I'm gonna go. This is the take that's gonna piss people off. I'm going
PG?
to go with PG.
That's fine.
Valley, I don't think you're that good. Like, look at your 2 games. You beat Kamloops. Whoopee flipping, you know what, Cole? You beat them 51-7. They're arguably the worst team in the BCFC. And then you came home and you got shut out by Okanagan. Like, you got shut out. You were the Lions. You couldn't even score a rouge. You're not that good. I think PG is on the upswing. That home field advantage, it is legit. PG is going to win this game. Valley, you're not good this year.
Yeah, I'm curious to see. I think PG is a good team. I agree. They are better than I expected, and I think better than people probably want to give them credit for. Even probably myself wanted to give them credit. They're probably a little bit better than I acknowledge. That being said, I think I have a little bit more confidence in Valley because I think PG was riding high off that week 1 win versus VI, and then they really haven't done too much since. Quarterback Sawyer Thiessen, who we got to see up close and personal with the University of Manitoba last season. They also had, I believe it was Carey, so one of their receivers, anyways. But the first few weeks of the season, 3 weeks of the season, they were up, near the top of the leaderboards for receiving, passing yards, passing touchdowns, and now I believe Sawyer's like third or fourth. Hasn't been He's been having a quiet couple of games here, and then their receiver has had a quiet couple of games. I believe he only has 4 touchdowns now, and only a few hundred yards when he had 3 touchdowns the first game versus VI, and I think he had 100 and something yards. So he's kind of been quiet as well. And I think PJ's slightly come back down to earth, and I think it'll be a close game. I think Valley wins it late because of just a little bit more experience. I think PG's still learning, kind of similar to VI, learning how to be a team that wins some of these games, learning how to be in some of these close games. Sometimes you start to, get a little bit close. You start to squeeze the ball. Your knees weak, palms are sweaty, to quote Eminem. But I'm going to go with Valley just because I think they're the more veteran team, if that's what you want to call it as of now. And I'm interested to see this another game. I think the parity in the BCFC this year has been really nice to watch, and it's been interesting to kind of sit down on Sunday when they're uploaded to YouTube and pick a game to watch other than the VI game. So I'm going to go with Valley. Blake will go with PG to switch things up. And now, lastly, Blake, I will go first here because this is a big game, obviously, for the both of us.
Yep.
You being the Langley supporter, me being the VI Raider alum supporter now, and obviously, I don't want to say employee for the team. I'm not working for the team, but just working for the team, building my portfolio with the kind of the social media side of things. I'm going to side with the homer, Blake, but I'm going to explain myself here. I'm going to go with VI. I think I do say that confidently, but this I think does have a little bit of motivation tactics for the boys are still at practice, so I do know that none of them are watching. None of the coaching staff is watching, but I'm gonna make my picks tomorrow with Wizard takes, and then they'll be released on Friday. Um, a little bit of that pick, I would say 25% of that pick, the Oki pick over VI was probably a little bit of wanting to motivate the boys to, see how they reacted. Just, posting stories, posting polls. I see them, when I posted, the BCFC power rankings and stuff like that, when, I asked for, people's reactions, thoughts and stuff like that. I see, some of the VI guys that react and take notice. So I felt like a little bit of that, as well as knowing how good Oki was, went into that pick. I think they've kind of proven me right a little bit here, where I can afford to, if we're being honest, I wouldn't be surprised if Langley wins, but I feel like I can afford to take VI, and it isn't so much of a shock or an outlandish pick now, where I think
No,
VI's in a lot
absolutely
of
not.
VI's in a lot of these games now. I think they proved that versus PG. They proved that versus Oki. I think this is going to be another game. Another guy who I was talking to, I don't know if he's actually a friend of yours, but HK Akeem,
Yep.
his boy. I played against him throughout my Raider career, and now I believe his younger son is a up and comer. I believe he's in the high school circuit. I know he's actually coming over Saturday and kind of meeting, getting to
I
meet.
won't throw him under the bus, but I know some stuff that he does. I'll leave it at that.
Gotcha. I believe he's coming over. So, talking with him, I know he thinks it's going to be a little bit more of a lopsided game for Langley. And I think there is some outcomes where this is a tough game for VI, especially I think I like what their receiving core is over there in Langley. Now that being said, I'm not the highest on their quarterback. I don't think they have the greatest quarterback in the league.
No.
And they do have a good defense though, which is kind of a problem I think, because I think this would probably be the Okies is up there, but I think Langley is going to be up there as well in terms of better defenses that Sadler's going to face and Sadler's going to go against. So I'm curious to see how that is. We actually had, I believe, Silas Gardner, one of the receivers. He's not, Ruben or Paul, but one of the receivers. He caught his first touchdown pass up in Kamloops. Has been a contributor. He's kind of like that 5'6" guy. He's kind of like McInnes was last year, where he stepped into a role for the team when a guy was down, really hit the ground running, and kind of was effective when his number was called upon, and has kind of earned himself a little bit more playing time. He actually got hurt in practice this week when I was out there Tuesday night. I believe he actually either dislocated his knee or might have actually unfortunately tore something up in his knee. So they are going to be without a weapon on offense, which will force somebody else to kind of step up and take away from that depth, which has been very good for them. I was at practice with my writing articles for the team and kind of covering them a little bit more, and asked offensive coordinator Jake LeBurge about going back to Oki, eight different players, that being running backs or receivers, had receptions for them, and then in Kamloops 6 different players caught touchdowns for them. So they don't have any shortage of weapons by any means, right? There's a lot of guys, but losing one is kind of taken away from that depth and having to go to someone else that is maybe not used to that role or situation. So I'm curious to see how that plays out. Long-winded way of saying I'm going to go with I'm going to go with VI, and I think I'm able to say that with my chest and proudly. I think I know where you're going to go. You're obviously going to go with your Rams, but what have I guess you like from the Rams in a little bit you've seen so far this year? I know they started on a bye, but why are you going to go with the Rams?
Yeah, no, I am gonna go with the Rams. But I'm gonna preface that by saying that that's no disrespect to the VI Raiders. Like they were toe to toe with the Prince George Kodiaks. Could have won that game. Like I said a little bit earlier, I think they honestly should have won the game against Okanagan. And then they went up against Kamloops, a team that if VI wants to make a run at the playoffs, they should beat, and they did beat them handily. And that's exactly where they should have been. So it's the Raiders are close, and I think at the end of this season they're going to be fighting with Valley and West Shore for that final playoff spot. But for those exact same reasons, that is why I'm going with the Rams, because the Rams want to get back to where they were. And as crazy as it is to say this, that was 3 years ago when they won the Canadian Bowl. The last 2 years, they've been first round exits both years. They're not happy about that. They want to be Cullen Cup champions. They want to win the CJFL semifinal, and they want to win the Canadian Bowl. And in order to get that, you have to beat the teams. I'm going to say this delicately, but unfortunately below you. And I think that other than Okanagan, nobody is really below the Langley Rams right now. So they should be beating teams like VI, teams like West Shore, teams like Handley, like PG, like they did, Kamloops, stuff like that. They ran all over Kamloops. They had 350 rushing yards in that game. Not passing yards, Cole, rushing yards. And that is a huge props to the offensive line. I'm going to give one of my former New Westminster Hayaks. He's come back. He's kind of a coach on the staff now. Rob Preda. He's on that offensive line. There's a lot of other guys that are on that offensive line. I'm trying to remember the running back's name. I believe it's Sean Lee. He ran for 170, and the other running back ran for like 150. So it was really a team effort from the Langley Rams. And I think it is going to be a close game. But as I said, the Rams need to beat the teams below them if they want to be, if they're going to go where they want to go, is what I'm trying to say. And unfortunately for you guys, as I said, I have a lot of respect for VI and what they've done in the first 3 weeks. I just don't think they're there yet.
Yep, no, well said, Blake. Not too much pushback on my part. To go back to what you're saying about it being 3 years now since Langley's, Okies won it, and then West Shore obviously
Yep.
going last year. They've been pushed down to the third recent team to kind of represent the BCFC and the CGFL playoffs and into the Canadian Bowl. So definitely looking to get back on track in terms of Langley. But I will say, Blake, we've been waiting a little bit longer out here in VI to get back on track in terms of getting back to the Cullen Cup. It's actually been since my rookie year, 2017, since the Raiders have been in a Cullen Cup. So, a lot of good years growing up here of, back-to-back, national championships, 08, 09. I remember those fondly. I believe it was when I was a kid, 6 or 7 straight years of winning the BCFC. Got into a few tough years there, and then luckily enough to capture one myself as a rookie there in 2017, and then it's been a few tough years there. So I think it's as well that I don't know if it's this year that they get back on track. I agree with you that I think Valley, West Shore is kind of fighting for the NBI, and I would even I would include PG probably in that conversation as well. It's kind of fighting for that last fourth playoff spot, and I think VI next year or so can really start to compete and turn things up. Sally only being a third-year guy, a lot of those guys, I would say probably 15 to 20 of the guys on the roster are 18 and 19-year-old young guys, first and second-year guys that will only be getting better and better. So, Blake, that'll do it for the show here tonight, buddy. 2 hours and 6 minutes, probably 2 hours and 10 by the time we get out of here. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff if you guys like the show here tonight. Blake and I will be back for a little preview here. You guys can expect that Saturday at some point. And from me, you guys can go check out my articles have started for the Nanaimo Bulletin. Unfortunately, I'm not able to share them on Instagram because whatever the weird rules, or Facebook as well, the weird news, whatever, you're not allowed to share news articles. I believe you're allowed to share them on Twitter, so you guys can find them on there as well. If not, I try to kind of share them or get them out there as best as possible without being able to link them on my Instagram and stuff like that. So go find those. Writing my articles after every VI Raiders game this season, trying to get add to my portfolio and add get my reps up, if you will. My 10,000 hours. I was a kid that actually hated English class, hated writing, hated language arts growing up, and now I'm trying to dabble down it, and it's kind of funny now that I look back at it. But expect my articles. You can expect another one out next week when the Raiders and Langley game is finalized. Like I mentioned, I would say I would just say, let's say as of now, there's no post-game show Sunday night because I think I'll be pretty busy. Blake's busy as well, which is okay because I think getting the preview show in this week is probably pretty good for us. We've been both busy with our work schedules and then pumping out a lot of content as well. So you can expect that from us, and then that'll be the routine from now on. Wednesday nights will be weekly show as always. Blake and I will be coming at you guys on a video form the day before BC Lions games, and then as always post-game show for the Lions. And then I guess stay tuned. Nothing official for Canada West season when that kicks off. Like I said, you can get used to, or you can get ready for the 6 different preview shows that are different preview episodes that'll be dropping here in the month of August in the next couple of weeks. I'm recording with offensive coordinator Josh Donnelly tomorrow from Regina Rams. Recording with Shamari Williams, defensive coordinator / recruiting coach from the University of British Columbia on Friday. Coach Coach Morris at the University of Alberta, head coach this upcoming weekend. Hopefully get a few more done next week and then have those ready for you guys to consume for the season before it kicks off and ready for that. Then once that gets going, I don't know, I'm going to be underwater with all the content that we have, to be honest, but it's all good because it's for the right reasons, and what I'm hopefully trying to do one day is hopefully do this full time and for a living. So get ready, folks. There's gonna be a lot of football on the channel, and it's exactly the way we wanted things on the channel here. So Blake, any final thoughts before we get out of here, buddy?
Yeah, there's just one quick thing that I wanted to mention really quickly. You and I both talked about it. We talked with our buddy Dave Wardell from he lives over in Victoria. The BCFC has released a very small batch of mini helmets. They're kind of gauging people's interest right now. So I'm unfortunately with my work schedule and trips and stuff like that, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to any Langley Rams games this year, which upsets me. If I do, it'll be in October. I know you're at a lot of the VI Raiders home games. If there's anyone else watching from the Lower Mainland, go to your local BCFC team, whether it's Prince George, Kamloops. get those mini helmets out because those look really cool. And I would love one of like all 7 BCFC teams.
Yes, I agree, Blake. Well said, buddy. I'm excited to. I'm definitely gonna. For me, it's a little different because I when I first saw it, I wanted for the all 7, but then the player side of me came out, and I was like, I couldn't hang like a West Shore Rebels helmet in my room, especially because I have my Raider gear right here and stuff like that. So I would just feel like I would be betraying my team, my organization if I did that. So I'm without a doubt going to be first in line, hopefully to go get a BI Raiders mini helmet on Saturday. Really looking forward to that, and hopefully I'll be able to have my little collection going here soon. With I have my Bills one, which is I'll have actually a couple Bills ones. I have the red one, I have a white one. I actually got in touch with, well, obviously our friend Dave, but another fellow who's coming out to the island from Toronto. He sent me a picture of his big helmet collection and his mini helmet collection that was fabulous, man, and kind of scratched my itch a little bit to add to my collection a little bit more. I have obviously my Bills ones. I have to find a new BC Lions logo with the BC logo, the monogram logo, instead of obviously
Yeah,
our
yeah.
the line one. But I would also love to find a line one as well and just try to add to my my mini helmet collection, I guess is what I'm going to try to start. Maybe add a little a floating shelf behind me with all my mini helmets. But well said, Blake. I agree. If you were out in the Langford area, that is in Victoria, if you are in Nanaimo, just on Vancouver Island in general, you can, if you're on the tip of the island, you can come down to, Nanaimo. If you're on the bottom of the island, you can get to Langford in Victoria. And if you are in Prince George, get out to the park this weekend and enjoy some BCSC football. You won't be disappointed. Blake, that's going to do it for us, buddy. Like I said, you guys can find both Blake and I's social medias in the link in the description. Remember Blake at 365 or Blake 3653 is what Blake is.
Yeah.
I think he's Blake B.Mountain 97 or something like that
Yep.
on Instagram. Mine's pretty easy. Cole McGarvey on both Twitter, on Instagram, and then you can find us on Canadian Football Fanatics on Twitter, on YouTube, and on Instagram. Please follow, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Share, be a friend, and tell a friend. It would be greatly, greatly appreciated. Both Blake and I would thank you so much. I believe we were 220 subscribers on YouTube, 800 and something. Blake, we're gonna have to make a goal for 1,000 on Instagram here pretty soon. We are gaining followers very rapidly on Instagram, and I'm trying to put out as much content as we can here, and hopefully trying to get you guys something on a daily basis. Hopefully getting you guys something a little bit more once I get going back to Lions games. Lions not being at home for the month is kind of quiet
It was
things.
tough.
That perspective. But once they get going back again, you can expect to see Blake and I. I'm not actually sure if I'm gonna be able to make it over for the Bombers game in a few weeks. I know Coach Phil is coming over, which is really shitty. But you can expect to see me at Touchdown Pacific, both Blake and I. I'm not too sure if he's going to be able to come over the day before, but I'll try to be doing a little bit of content.
Yeah, it doesn't look like I'll be able to come over the day before anymore, so it'll probably be like a 24-hour thing where I'm literally there the morning of Touchdown Pacific, stay Touchdown Pacific, and then probably even leave that night.
Yeah, so get used to it though. Blake and I will be doing the usual kind of game day content once we're there in Victoria. Give you our thoughts quickly from the stadium. Maybe even be able to get some interviews in with some people that are there. Maybe Julio Caravetta, Moj, that type of thing. So stay tuned, guys. We'll see you guys Saturday morning in video form, and then we'll see you guys Wednesday in live form. So have a good weekend, everybody, and enjoy the Canadian football.